Hello, and welcome to E-Rate, What's New for 2025. I am Christa Porter. I am the Library Development Director here at the Nebraska Library Commission. I also serve as the State E-Rate Coordinator for Public Libraries in Nebraska. So I am the person who helps you get your E-Rate funding. I do training, consultation. I will help you submit all of your forms, whatever you need to make sure you get your discounts. In Nebraska, I help all of our public libraries to do this, and we have the Department of Education that does the applications for our schools. So today we are going to be talking mainly from the library point of view, but if you are a school watching this or watching the recording, a lot of the things are the same throughout the program, so you can use it generally for general information as well. So today we are going to go through the basics of E-Rate, what the program's all about, how to submit your application, some new things in the program. It will definitely be useful. It's a general overview for anyone who's brand new to E-Rate, but also very good as a refresher, hopefully for any of you who've done E-Rate before. It's just a reminder of what the program is like, what the rules are for it. I do stuff with E-Rate almost every day. I'm always working with it and helping libraries. You all only do this once a year, so it's understandable that you might need a reminder of sometimes about some of the things that go on in the program. So hopefully this workshop will be useful for you for that. So let's get started and see what E-Rate is all about. So yes, the first question, what is E-Rate? Good question. I'm going to read this off and then do a little the official description here, and then do my explanation a little more in depth. E-Rate is a federal program to ensure that schools and libraries can obtain high-speed internet access at affordable rates and keep students and library patrons connected to broadband by providing a discount on eligible services and equipment. So E-Rate can get you a discount on your monthly internet costs. Any construction and installation to bring that internet to your library, and any of the physical equipment, routers, switches, cables, etc., that you need inside your library building to make that internet work. The E-Rate program was started by the Telecommunications Act of 1996. The first year schools and libraries could apply was in 1997, and the first year funding was received was 1998. So this program's been around for over 25 years, helping our schools and libraries be able to provide internet access to their students and anyone using the library. The money to fund this program comes from the universal service fee. This is a fee that we pay on our bills, service providers pay on their bills, and all this money is gathered together to put into a pot to help these schools and libraries have their discounts and be able to provide the service. So we all pay into this pot of money to help them provide the discounts. The FCC is in charge of the program. They set up and run and oversee the program. They set all the rules and policies. So if there's some new change to the rules or change to what's going to be offered or how it's going to be offered or how you apply, they set the overreaching rules. And they created a not-for-profit company, the Universal Service Administrative Company, USAC, who runs the day-to-day operations of the E-Rate program. USAC is what you'll normally hear me talking about when I'm saying what you're doing. You're going to be reaching out to E-Rate or reaching out to USAC. That's who you'll hear me say. USAC actually runs 3 other programs as well, in addition to the E-Rate program for schools and libraries. Ours is the schools and libraries program. Part of it. They also have a healthcare facility program, a low-income program, and a high-cost program for areas in the country that have the internet is very expensive. So they have 4 different programs that they run, helping all of these different groups be able to afford their internet. We're, of course, talking about the schools and libraries program because we're talking about public libraries today. E-Rate runs on a funding year. They have their own year that we have to be aware of. This goes from July 1st of any year to June 30th of the next year. So whenever you are applying for E-Rate, you are thinking about receiving a discount starting next year, July of next year. The application process starts now in the fall, and you're thinking to the future. So right now, you are applying for funding year 2025, FY 2025, which runs from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. We are currently in the 2024 funding year, which started July 1st of this year and goes till June 30th of next year, 2025. So there are different activities and different things that happen related to that funding year. Some things before, during, and after. Before the funding year starts, you request and say we're looking for someone to provide a service for us, to provide construction equipment, and then you do a competitive bidding process and decide pick who's going to be your provider for that. At the beginning of the funding year, your services start and you start receiving your discounts, and then during the funding year and sometimes after, you do what they call invoicing. This terminology is one thing that's a little confusing because invoices can be called, various things can be called invoices. For E-rate purposes, bills are what you receive from your internet service provider. Invoices are what you send to USAC to receive your discount. So right now, libraries are working on the invoicing part of funding year 2024, possibly because it's during this funding year getting their funding set up. But at the same time, starting to work on applying for next year. So you will be doing activities from different funding years at the same time, and they will cross over. So we're in the middle of 2024 funding year. We're starting up thinking about applying for 2025. You're going to be doing this different things at the same time, and it is an ongoing process. There are forms to submit throughout the year, various times, things to do to keep your internet going and keeping your E-rate going, and we will go through that whole process here today. So who is eligible to apply for E-rate? Libraries and library systems and schools and school districts are eligible. As I mentioned, we're going to talk mostly about libraries today. For libraries, the rule set by the FCC is that a library must be eligible to receive LSTA funds. This is Library Service and Technology Act funds from IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So if you are eligible to receive those funds for any reason, not that you actually are receiving any for any purpose, but that you are eligible. In Nebraska, this means that all legally established public libraries are eligible. The FCC has said the state library agency for each state determines what this means in their state. What does it mean to be eligible for LSTA funds? So that's us here at the Library Commission. So we've determined that all legally established public libraries are eligible to apply for our grants from us that are funded by LSTA funds. We also provide services to all libraries in the state that use LSTA funds. So anyone who's legally established library can apply for E-rate. This also includes tribal libraries officially now. There was some unknowns about can they, can't they, but in 2022, the FCC put out an order amending the definition of the word library in the E-rate and including tribal library. And their qualifications are different than a public library. They have to be designated as the tribal library by a tribal council and have to have regularly scheduled hours, staff that work there, and materials available for library users. As long as you have those three things, a tribal library can apply for E-rate. In addition, if you have a tribal college or university library, and that library also serves as the public library for the community, that college and university library is eligible to apply for E-rate as well. If the tribal college or university library is only for the use of the students at that college or university, then no, it would not be eligible. Universities are not eligible for E-rate, but if it is also the public library, then it would be, you'd be eligible to apply for E-rate. The first thing I tell libraries when they're thinking about doing E-rate or thinking about considering whether can you continue doing E-rate is to figure out how much of a discount you can get. How much money can you really save on your internet costs or any of your other purchases that you might be making? This is a good way to sell it to your library board, your municipality, whoever might be interested in why you're spending so much time filling out these forms and figuring this out and doing all this work. And if you can show them, well, here's how much money we can save, that can really help your case. So you are eligible for anywhere from 20 to a 90% discount. The minimum is 20, the most you can get off is 90%. And there are two different numbers amounts that are used to calculate this discount. The first thing is they use the National School Lunch Program data. This is the free and reduced lunches that the students in your school district receive. The FCC wanted to give the highest discount, the most discount to areas that were the most in need, and so they needed some sort of criteria that would be an indicator of poverty. And they chose, and there's many different things you could choose for this to be indicators of poverty. They choose the school lunch program. So that's just the one that they decided to go with. So it is a percentage of K through 12 students, so not your pre-K, who are eligible to apply for the school lunch program in the school district where your library is located. Now, your library may serve multiple, students from multiple school districts, and that's fine because of where you might, sit on the edge of a school district or something, or just where people travel. But for E-rate purposes, you're just looking at geographically whatever school district the library physically sits in. That's the numbers that you look at. Just because you may be serving other students, but you just look at those numbers. And something else important about this is that it is the percent of students who are eligible for the program, not that apply. Not all families who are eligible apply. Some say, we're fine, we don't need it. Some don't want to apply due to the stigma, whatever it is. But and it's only the actual numbers that are used for this, or that are provided. There's no individual, no personal information, so no privacy issues with this at all. It's just a number. Here's the number of students that are enrolled in our school district. Here's how many of those students are eligible for the school lunch program, and here's that percentage. So it's all just numbers. In addition to that, you look at whether your library is considered urban or rural, and this is based on U.S. Census data. So where do you find all these numbers? Lucky for us here in Nebraska, the the Department of Education posts their school lunch numbers on their website. Here's the URL you can go to find them. And I'll mention here while we're on this page, this is the first page that's come up with some websites on it. You don't need to try and scribble down all these URLs. After this workshop is done, everyone will have access to the slides. I'll email them out to everybody. It'll also be posted on our website. And all of the links that I have here are somewhere on our E-rate website at the Library Commission anyways, that you can jump to them. I've just also put them in the presentation as well. So you can go to that website, and there is a spreadsheet, a couple of sections down on that page. It's a lot of different reports from the Department of Education. You just look for the one that says it's for the National School Lunch Program, and there is a tab in there that is for the school district. They have all the individual schools on one tab. You don't need to do that math yourself. They total them up on a separate sheet in there of the school district as a whole, because that's what you want. And it tells you what the percentage is. And then you can go to the USAC website and look up whether you are considered urban or rural. They post it on there in your county. They use the most recent U.S. Census data, so they use the 2020 census numbers for this. And the cutoff between urban and rural, according to the FCC, is 25,000. So if your population of your community is 25,000 or more, you're considered urban. Below that, you're rural. Most of Nebraska is rural, of course. Our major city centers would be considered urban. And this matters because in some of the levels of discounts, you receive a slightly higher discount because you're rural rather than urban. Then you take these two numbers and you use USAC's discount matrix to figure out what your discount is. And here is that discount matrix. Here's that chart. Now there is you'll notice there's category 1 columns and category 2 columns, and this has to do with the kind of things you can apply for E-rate for. And I'm going to get into that in a few slides here. But you can see here on the left-hand side, it's the percent of students that are eligible for the school lunch program, and then how much of a discount you receive. So you can see here, just having half of your students, 50% minimum eligible, you can receive 80% discount off of your internet bills, anything you might need to purchase to make your internet work. You can get even just 50% if you're rural, if you only have 1% of the students eligible for the school lunch program. So these numbers are pretty high. This is a lot. Most libraries in Nebraska fall between the 60 to 80% discount rates. Most of our libraries are getting 60, 70, or 80%. So this is a good deal. So definitely I would say, figure this out. If you need to, I can help you do, look up your numbers and get the information to you. If there's someone who you need to, like I said, convince that this is a good idea. This is how much money you can receive a discount on. What can you receive a discount on? Good question. That is where we do look at the eligible services list. Every year, the FCC puts out a new list of the items, the services, whatever is going to be what I call E-ratable. What is E-ratable? So there's a new list every year. We link to it from our website. They have all of the previous lists on their website as well. This is because, like I said, you're maybe crossing the streams, crossing the years, and working on last year's and this year's, and sometimes things are added, and there are some new things. There's new things this year. So whenever you're doing E-rate and working on a particular application, make sure you're looking at the correct list if you need to refer to it for some reason. The eligible services are broken up into two categories. Category 1 is services bringing high-speed internet to your library building. Category 2 is once you have that internet service, how do you make it work inside the building? So in this graphic I put together here on the right, these bricks here, that's supposed to indicate the walls of the library. So those are the walls of the building. So outside that is category 1. This would be your monthly internet cost, any construction to make that internet work, anything outside the library that is related to the library's internet service. Once you're inside the building, it's under category 2. And this is all the pieces of equipment, the cables, servers, wireless access point, routers, et cetera. This isn't everything here. This is just a general picture. All of this that makes the internet service work once you've got it to the library building, that's category 2. The devices that you use to access the internet are not E-rate eligible. E-rate is about the service, the internet service, and you'll see that mentioned a lot. And when you're looking at the application forms, it says, service request. So it's all about the service itself, getting the service, the internet service, and making the internet service work. Once you have it, your PCs, laptops, wireless printers, your smartphones, those devices are not eligible for E-rate discounts. It's not part of the program. For category 1, there's not a limit on how much you can funding you can request. It's just a discount, your discount rate off of however much the thing cost. For category 2, there's a budget. And I'll get into the specifics of how that budget works in a few slides. So the funding is handled a little differently from category 1 to category 2. So category 1 is basically anything that gets high-speed broadband internet to your building. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just the most common ways that connections are made. Broadband over power lines, cable modem, DSL, fiber, satellite, wireless services. This would include like mobile service on school buses or bookmobiles. All the different ways you can get internet to your building. The dark and lit fiber, those are, if you're considering dark fiber, which is fiber that's not actually in use yet that you need to connect to, you have to do a combination request for both lit and dark fiber together. The form actually makes you do that, and we'll see a demonstration of that when we get to looking at our actual forms. Something else under category 1 is construction, if you need to bring the internet to your library in the first place. Special construction is specifically what E-rate has, and this is if you do not currently have a fiber connection. So this is only bringing new fiber to your library building. You can receive an E-rate discount on that construction cost. So and this would include all of the actual construction, laying the lines, doing any digging needs to be done, any of that physical work, the project management, planning, anything that goes along with it. Now, you want your internet to be working when the funding year starts on July 1st, and the FCC understands that service providers cannot always work under the E-rate calendar of only doing things during the funding year. So you can apply for the cost of, you can have this construction happen up to 6 months before the funding year starts. So as early as January 1st of the year. And then you will receive a discount on all that work that was done, even though the funding year of when the service is available to be discounted starts on July 1st. Now, related to special construction, E-rate has a state matching fund program. This is if your state will provide some money to help cover the additional costs above what E-rate will cover. So your E-rate discount is 60% and you're responsible for another 40%. Sometimes states will say, well, we'll help you with that extra 40%. And if they do, E-rate will bump up your basic E-rate discount another 10% to match the state funding. So if you had a 60% discount, you would now have a 70% discount on the special construction. And we have this kind of program here in Nebraska. We have a special construction state matching program actually through the Nebraska Public Service Commission. We have our own Universal Service Fund, Nebraska Universal Service program here in Nebraska. And so this is called NUSF 117 if you're looking for the order number here in the state. And back in before 2020, in 2018, 2019, there was a broadband task force that was put together that met periodically to figure out how can we better get broadband throughout the state. And there's lots of different recommendations and programs that were instituted. And one of them was the Public Service Commission was given $1 million to use over a 4-year pilot period, 2021 through 2024, to help libraries pay for a portion of that additional funding, additional money above and beyond what E-rate would cover. In 2023, they updated the program, extending it indefinitely, so the end date of 2024 no longer there. It's just going to be an ongoing program as long as there's money available. And they removed the 10% cap on state support. Originally, it was only 10% the state would cover, and then the library or the municipality was eligible for the rest. Now, the Public Service Commission will cover the entire amount that is over what E-rate covers. And there is a website you can go to read more about it and apply for this extra funding from the Public Service Commission. So doing the math, now these numbers here, we have not had any construction projects that were actually $100,000, but this is just good for math purposes. But if you do have you have reached out and you have a provider that says, yes, we can bring fiber to you, and it costs $100,000 and you have a 50% E-rate discount, because you get your half of that's already covered by E-rate, 50,000. But then we tell E-rate, we do have a state matching program in Nebraska, so they say, oh, we're going to bump that up 10%. So now $60,000 is covered by E-rate. And now since 2023, the state matching fund will cover the remaining 40% of the project, making this special construction cost nothing for the library. Zero cost for your library, for your municipality to have new fiber run. So this is great. For at no cost at all, you can have new fiber brought to your community. So this is also a good way to sell this as well to your community. If you do not have fiber where you are right now, you could say, hey, the library can be the savior of our community. We can be the ones that bring fiber to our town. You know, we know it's out there in the state, but it may be in the next town over, or it's out on the highway, but not in our city, in our village, and we need the lines run from there to us. Using this program, you can have that done for free at zero cost for you. Just a little time of submitting forms. So just simplifying the math here, $100,000 project, your base 50% E-rate discount takes care of 50,000 of that. The additional E-rate discount of 10% more, because we have a state matching fund, covers another 10%, 10,000, and then the state matching fund covers whatever's left over. 40,000. So this is just an example. Your math, it would all come out the same. Whatever's left over, the state covers. So to do this, you go through you start off with a regular E-rate process, doing the first form in the process, the 470. And I'm going to get into the details of how you do that in a little bit here. You submit your 470. You just find a company who will do this for you through a competitive bidding process. Once you've picked whoever you're going to go with, then you have to apply to the Public Service Commission for their funding. You'll include a copy of your 470 and what the bid was from the company that's going to do the work. The deadline to apply for the Public Service Commission money is December 31st of this year, but I will tell you that is not in stone. They've given extensions and let libraries apply later. We know sometimes it takes some time to get back and forth with the service provider, especially now that it's getting later in the year, really close to that December deadline, that you do have they will let you apply after December 31st. Sometime mid-January or after you've submitted the application to the Public Service Commission, they will send you an email letting you know if you've been funded, and with a letter attached that says, here's the official notification that you are going to be receiving this additional funding. When you do your second form of the E-rate process, which is when you tell USAC, here's who we've picked for our provider, here's the service they're going to provide, you will include that letter so that they know that you've got that state matching funds and they know how much E-rate will cover and how much the state will cover. Doing this kind of project is something that could be a major construction project, depending on where the fiber is, how close is your community. So you do need to reach out to you need to make sure you're following all the rules for this kind of major project, depending on how much it costs. Sometimes there might be procurement rules. It's over a certain amount. You have to go through a certain process, submit bids on a certain website, whatever that may be. So check with your local municipality and make sure you have approval from whoever is in charge of these kind of things or is going to be involved. This isn't something that just the library can apply for and get free money. You do need to work with your city administrator. If you have an IT person in town who's going to be handling, you know, the internet connection of it, money people, your city clerk, city attorney, and of course keep your library board up to speed on what's going on and what you're doing. So does anybody have any questions about special construction? You can type into the questions section of your GoToWebinar interface or about anything I've mentioned so far. All right, something new in E-rate this year is hotspots and the internet service for them. In July of this year, the FCC put in a new order and updated the eligible services list, and you can now use E-rate funds to apply for purchasing hotspots, to have a hotspot lending program, and to cover the service, the internet service cost for those hotspots. This was originally a program that was started at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. That was the emergency connectivity fund money, so that because all of us went home, we were working from home, doing our schooling from home, and needed better internet service in many houses that didn't have it. And so a separate program was set up that was also run by USAC, but it was not E-rate, it was its own emergency connectivity fund program, and where schools and libraries could start hotspot lending programs. That program is done. That has been wrapped up. You can't apply for that anymore, but it's being wrapped up. So because it was so popular and so needed so much, the FCC decided to make it a permanent part of the E-rate program. So now it's available through there. So you can loan out these hotspots that you purchased for schools, to students, to school staff to take home, and for library patrons to use outside the school. So this would be internet that you would be lending out for off premises, outside the library walls, which is why it falls in Category 1. Remember, that wall breaks up our Category 1 and Category 2. The funding for this is handled a slightly different way. There are some funding caps on the cost of these hotspots. The service itself, you can apply for up to $15 per month for each line. And to purchase the hotspots, which is usually a one-time cost, you can receive up to $90 per hotspot. And then in total, there's a 3-year cost funding cap of $630 per each one of these. We do know that the $90 per hotspot is pretty good, pretty average. $15 per month, most people have said it costs a lot more than that. The FCC did take comments about this and did decided to stick with $15 a month for now. We'll see how it goes. It's a 3-year budget, so after these first 3 years, we'll see what kind of response and if they decide to change that. But for now, that's how much you can do per line. You can apply for a discount of that much per line. So to do this math here, you can get just the way the math rounds out. This is based on the size of your library building. So 5.5 devices per 1,000 square feet of your building is what you can get. So for example, if you have a library that's 10,000 square feet and you have a 90% discount rate, your pre-discount budget would be $31,500. So that is how much money you would have to spend over 3 years. It is a 3-year budget, and then you start over again with another 3 years. Something that libraries were very concerned about is some wording in the act, in this order, that said these hotspots should be used for educational purposes. This is also something that was in when it was the Emergency Connectivity Fund. So, however, that there is a definition. They have a separate definitions for what educational purposes means, whether you're a school or a library. And for libraries, educational purposes means they're activities that are integral, immediate, and proximate to the provision of library services to library patrons. So basically, whatever your services are, they are considered educational purposes for the purpose of this, for E-rate. So anything your library does. We know libraries don't, everything we do isn't necessarily educational. Lots of it is entertainment, that kind of thing. But for E-rate, they did make a definition that whatever a library does, it's covered. So whatever people do using the hotspots they take home, it's covered. You do need to be SIPA compliant. That's the Children's Internet Protection Act, because this is providing internet service to someone and using federal funds to pay for that internet service. And we'll get into more details about that in a bit here. All right, so that is our category 1. Category 2 is everything that is internal connections. This is everything inside your library, the equipment, anything that you might need that would be like this in your closet. This is a network closet, very pretty one here, very nice. All the wires all nicely wrapped up and connected, kept nice and neat. Yours might most likely be more messy than that. But so any of the equipment that you need once you've got the internet service to your building in some way, what you need inside to make it work. So your wireless access points, cables, firewalls, routers, racks, power supplies, any software or licenses to make the network work. So your networking software would be eligible for a discount. Other software like Microsoft Office or things, no, that's not eligible. But just things to make the network work. And anytime you have to do upgrades or improvements or have work done on your any of your equipment, installation costs, fixing problems and issues are eligible as well. And that would be your basic maintenance of these internal connections, which is acronym BMIC. There's going to be ongoing upkeep that you're going to have. Things need to be repaired. My usual example, if a squirrel gets in the walls and chews your internet cable, you're going to need to have a cable rerun. The cost of that maintenance or that repair work is covered. Any basic tech support, updating your systems that has to do with the internet, you can get an E-rate discount on that. You need to think about this year by year, though. If you have a multi-year contract with someone like your internet service provider or with whoever you have doing tech work for you, for example, in this example, you have a 3-year accountless contract. Each year you apply for a third of that to get reimbursed. And then separate, in addition to category 1 and 2, there could be all these miscellaneous charges that you also pay. And they are also eligible for E-rate. So you definitely want to include them in your costs when you say, hey, this is how much it's going to cost. Your monthly E-rate might be $50 a month, but then there are taxes and fees on top of that that you also have to pay. All those taxes and fees are also E-rate eligible as well. Any shipping charges for installation costs for sending equipment to you, training related to if you need to train staff, library staff, to know how to work your network. So if you have a library person is going to be your IT person running your networking, send them off to some sort of basic networking training, that kind of training. And any sort of installation and configuration. Sometimes this is included from your internet service provider. Sometimes you might hire someone from outside. That is perfectly fine. You can do that too and get an E-rate discount on that. So a lot of these network equipments and things, you may not have any clue what they're all about. It can be overwhelming. There's this closet, like I said, with all these wires in there, and you look at it and say, I don't know what each of these boxes does. I don't understand this at all. And that's totally very, very common. We have some resources that can help you figure this out and learn what is in your network closet or wherever it is. First thing we have here is this Toward Gigabit Libraries Toolkit. We highly recommend taking a look at this. It is specifically designed for small, rural, and tribal libraries that do not have their own IT person. And that is very common for us here in Nebraska. Our smallest, littlest libraries do not have someone to help them. But anyone can use this. It's just free, open source. We've got a link to it on our E-Rate website. Is created by the Internet 2 organization, and they're on. It's funded by grants through IMLS, and I believe they received their 3rd grant just earlier this year, so they're constantly updating it. Staff here at the Library Commission were involved in reviewing it and giving input into it in the past. So we are very happy. We really like it and suggest it to all our libraries. So this is how you just learn what is in there. It's going to help you go through and do a technology inventory. So just take you looking at what is each piece of equipment that I have, what's the brand, what does it say on it, and then give you an improvement plan, a broadband improvement plan, to try and help you decide, so this is the type of router you have, you really should upgrade a new one right away. Or, well, you can wait a couple of years because that one's still good. That kind of thing it'll give you tips about. So great resource, highly recommend using it. Highly recommend also using SHRM. Andrew Sherman is an IT person here at the Library Commission, who's our IT person for you, actually. He's been on the staff for a couple of years now. He's in my department here in library development, and he will come to your library or work with you over the phone, online, to do a tech review of everything that is in your library, not just your network, but your PCs, your staff PCs, your patron PCs, anything internet technology related. He will come and do a tech review for you and tell you what you should be updating, what's still good, what needs to be better. And this is definitely something you want to be keeping up on, doing these kind of inventories and up to date and keeping your equipment new, because you may be paying for really fast internet, a fiber connection that's 1 gigabit, which is great, 1 gigabit speed. But if your wireless access points and routers and switches are old, they cannot handle that speed, and you're not going to get the speed that you are paying for to the actual computers. It's going to be slowed down because that equipment in between the internet you're paying for and your computer is not new enough. It's too old to handle that fast speed. So this is something you have to be on top of and be updating. So use the Toward Gigabit Libraries Toolkit and use SHRM. Contact SHRM, and he will help you with all of this as well. So I mentioned that Category 2 E-rate funding is handled a little differently than Category 1, and this is using Category 2 budgets that are calculated for you. So for Category 2, what USAC has decided to do it differently. They have calculated a 5-year budget for you. This year, 2025, that we are applying for right now, that is the end of the current 5-year cycle. So you want to use up any money you have now before the new cycle, the new 5-year budget starts for 2026. So this is your last chance to apply for this round. The budget is set at the beginning of the funding cycle. So 2021 is what it was set. And then you have that amount of money to use in the 5 years. You are not limited to only spending how much your budget is. That's just how much you'll receive from E-rate. You can buy something that's way more over your budget. That's fine. You're just responsible for the part over what E-rate will cover. This is something that is actually kept track of in your E-rate account online, and I'm going to show you how that Epic account, your E-rate account is. So I'm going to explain how the budget works here, but they do keep track of it for you in your account of how much it's been calculated out for what you have, and if you've applied for something, how much it's deducted and subtracted from there each year. So since we are in the last year of this 5-year cycle, we're recommending that you try and find some things to buy. check your budget, see how much you have left, and use it up, because this money does not roll over. It's a use it or lose it situation. So since 2025 is the last year of this 5-year budget, really dig down and see, what can I update? What do I need new equipment for? I want to get the most bang for my buck. I want to use as much of the money that I was allotted and not, let it just go. Leave it on the table. So definitely recommend, look at category 2. Is there anything you can update? Reach out to SHRM, have him come and do a tech review for you and tell you, yes, buy this, 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 and this, and it will last for 5 or 6 years. You'll get a new budget for 2026 if you want to, but you want to use as much money that they've got for you as you can. So how much is my budget? How does this work? For the current cycle, it is based on the size of your library. So there is a spot in your E-Rate account, and I'm going to show you that when we get to looking at your account, where you enter the total square area in feet of your library building. And this is everything in your library, your bookmobiles, everything that's considered the library buildings or locations. And you take that total and you multiply it by $4.50. That's the amount this year. But there is a minimum budget they do have of $25,000. So a budget funding floor, they call it. So at a minimum, everyone will get $25,000. The cutoff for doing the math and getting $25,000 is if your library has less than 5,556 square feet, you get that's cut off for $25,000. If your library is bigger than that, then you do the math to figure out what your pre-discount budget is. You can change this if over that 5-year period the size of your building changes. You've added an addition to the building, you've built a whole new building that's a totally different size. You just request a replacement budget for your category 2, and then it would update the numbers and redo the calculation for you. So how does this actually work in math? So you have a library that's 3,500 square feet. 3,500 times $4.50 is $15,750. But there is the minimum budget of $25,000. So your pre-discount budget is $25,000. So now you still, with everything with E-Rate, you still use that discount rate somehow. In this example, we're saying you have a 50% discount rate. So you actually receive $12,500 in E-Rate funds to spend on any category 2 purchases during that 5-year period. And as I said, this will be just kept track of in your E-Rate account for you. It looks like I have a question type in here. Hang on, let me get it brought up on my screen so I can see what it says. Okay, so someone wants to know if we have never applied for category 2 or are able to apply for this last year in the cycle. Yes, absolutely. Yes, good question. Yes, it is a 5-year process, but you can jump in at any time. You do not have to have started with 2021 and then do something every single year. No, you can just jump in whenever you decide, it's time to buy something. And you can do it this year too. So if you've never done category 2 during this 5 years, you will have your whole amount available to you to use in 2025 because you haven't spent anything at all. But it is something to think about. So yes, the answer to the question is yes, but it's something to think about, is to plan out. I have 5 years and what can I do each year? You also have to think about, do I have the time to install this? How's it going to work with what we're doing at the library? I have one library that one year they bought all new switches, then the next year new routers. So kind of spreading out the purchasing of it and the installation of what they're doing. Also something to think about is your community planning a new building at some time in the next 5 years when you're at the beginning of a 5-year budget. Think about when that would fall in for getting a discount on anything you need to purchase to build the new library building, create, if you're having a computer lab build, or just running the internet to the building in general. All right, let's see if there's any other questions here. Any other questions you have right now about category 1, category 2? Just making sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, on to SIPA and filtering. You are required to be in compliance with SIPA to receive E-rate funding. You're required to be in compliance with SIPA to receive any federal funding that will provide access to the internet. So that would include grants, our library improvement grants that use federal funding, the Library Services Technology Act funding. If you are purchasing equipment that will connect the internet or computers that will access the internet, like from a grant, you're required to be SIPA compliant. So for E-rate purposes, the whole purpose of E-rate is to provide internet access. So you do need to be in compliance with SIPA for that. Now, SIPA is something that can sometimes be a controversial. People are very extreme, sometimes opinions on it. There are people that are, everything should be blocked, we have to protect the children at all costs, so filter and block everything, all the way to the other extreme where they say this is my intellectual freedom is being infringed upon, this is censorship, I do not want to block anything, people need to handle it themselves, and I don't want to think about filtering at all, and everything in between. We do not get into that philosophy of the whether you should or shouldn't for those reasons in SIPA here in this workshop. My job here is to get you in compliance with SIPA so that you can receive your E-rate funding. And SIPA is actually pretty easy to be in compliance with. It's not a very detailed act, the Children's Internet Protection Act. The whole thing is maybe 14 pages long if you wanted to print it out and read it. And it does not have a lot of detail that maybe some people would like it to have, but it really doesn't. So there are ways that we can, at a very minimum, do what is the minimum requirement to be in compliance with SIPA, and then you can personally at your library decide how much above that you do. So there's three things that SIPA requires. It requires that you have an internet safety policy. This is something you possibly already have, basically something that says you'll make sure that it says you have to protect children from anything that is harmful to minors. So nothing illegal, no pornography. Your internet safety policy probably would say, please don't access illegal websites, don't hack our computers, things like that. So you may already have this policy in your patron behavior policy or in your computer use policies, and that's fine as long as you have some sort of policy. Then you have to have the technology protection measure. That's the terminology that the Act decided to say is filters. So you have to have a filter. There are no rules about what filter to purchase. It does not have a list of here's all of the acceptable filters. It has information, what it does say is what the filter needs to do. And it needs to protect minors from protect children from anything that is harmful to minors. It does not give a lot of detail about what that means either. Is up to each community to decide what they think is harmful and at what level things should be protected. It does not say your filter has to be at the medium strength of filtering or the high strength of filtering. It doesn't say that at all. It just says protect minors. So whatever you think works for your library. It does say this filter has to be on all of the library's computers. That does include your adult use computers and your staff computers. It does not say just put it on the children's area computers, the ones used by children. This is the Children's Internet Protection Act. That maybe I think was one of the things they didn't word exactly right, but it does say this filter has to be on its computers owned by the library. So it's not, and some people it is a misconception that some people do say that, well, we only have to filter the children's computers and then we're in compliance. Unfortunately, no, that's not what the Act says. And if USAC decides to come and check what you're doing and you do not have filtering at some point installed somehow on all your computers, you're going to possibly be in trouble and have to return your E-rate funding. However, there is also a clause that states there has to be a way to turn off the filter for an adult who needs to use that computer for bona fide research or work. So on your, now your filters can be individually, software that's individually installed on each computer, or it can be something that's at your network level, like when your provider, internet service provider, might say, we have a filter on anything that comes into your library building. So you do have to have that on all the computers, but then for your staff computers, you can go and turn that off. Turn off the filter so that they can do their jobs and access the websites they need to. For the adult use computers, you can do the same thing, either turn it off or just put it at the very lowest security level where you hardly ever notice that it blocks anything, and you're in compliance. Of course, for the children's ones, you probably want a higher level because you definitely want to protect them from getting into anything illegal or bad. So that is important to be aware of. It has to be on every computer, but you have to be able to turn it off. And then the third thing is a public notice or meeting or hearing had to have been held. This is basically just an agenda item at some point over the years, and when your library board meetings where you're just notifying the community, yes, we have filters and here's the one we picked and it got installed yesterday, or we're installing it next week, whatever. This only has to happen once. So look through your old paperwork, see if you have a old minutes from a library board meeting or agenda that says, hey, this is when we first started filtering and here's when we talked to them all about it. If you can't find that or don't know where it is, just have a new meeting so that you can get yourself in compliance, where you just put it on the agenda of just reminding everyone, hey, we have a filter and it's still working. Anyone have any comments about it? Cool. And then you are in compliance. Now, many libraries having to have a filter is a stumbling block for applying for E-rate and receiving E-rate. And we have help for that for you as well. And that is Sherm. Again, we love Sherm. He created last year a program here through the Library Commission where we can provide a filter for you for free. He researched it and found this service called DNS Filter, which is very easy for him. He will come to your library and help install it, get it going for you. It's just software, and he will monitor and maintain it on your behalf. And the NLC covers the expense of this service and all of his helping you keep it going. Filter also will provide beyond just filtering for E-rate purposes. It does other cybersecurity type protections as well. So it's good to have just in general, not even just because you want to apply for E-rate or you want to apply for federal grant monies. It's also good to have this kind of protection anyways. There is a URL there to go to our DNS filtering webpage on our Library Commission website. Sherm also did a webinar for us on Encompass Live about cybersecurity and filtering. Highly recommend watching that just to get an overview of what everything cybersecurity and filtering related from him. So if you are unsure what filter to pick, you don't know what to do, it's so hard to make a decision, reach out to Sherm and he can get you set up with this, explain this to you. If you are currently paying for a filter through your internet service provider and you'd like to maybe save some money and not have to pay for that anymore, reach out to Sherm and he can switch you to our DNS filter, and then you can contact your provider and say, we no longer need this service. Can you cancel that part of our account? All right. Oh, we have a question about filtering. Would the filter be good enough that we could not use Fortinet anymore? Okay, so Fortinet is a firewall, so that's something different. You still need a firewall. So this would not, a filter would not replace your firewall. That's a different type of software, a different thing. And Sherm can talk to you about that as well, about what you can, what firewall you have and making that up to date for you as well. All right. The last thing that you need to look at you need to be aware of for the basics of E-rate, getting ready for E-rate, is they do have a document retention policy. So the FCC rules state that you must keep any paperwork related to E-rate for 10 years after the last date of service. Last date of service would be the end of your funding year, which is June 30th of every funding year. So right now, the E-rate year you're applying for is 2025. So the end of that funding year is June 30th, 2025, means everything related to this year you have to keep through June 30th, 2036. This would also include things that not just paperwork you did this year, but if you signed a contract way before this year, like in 2020, for just ongoing services, that contract you have to keep through the end because it relates to this year coming up. You have to keep that. So sometimes if you signed a contract and it's just you pay month to month and you never have to sign some new contract and it's just been going and going and going for 10, 15 years, you have to keep a copy of that ongoing because it applies to every new year that comes up. Now, you do not have to keep piles and piles of paper like this scary photo that I put on here of stacks of paper. You can, if you want to, print out these things, keep in a binder if you want, but you can keep them electronic if you want to. Put them on a flash drive, put them in a folder on your computer, on your server, wherever. But you just need to be able to access any of these documents if USAC asks for them. They do periodic checks and balances where they can go back up to 10 years to just check and see, how did the program work? Did you get everything submitted? Did you have any issues? Show me your documentation for whatever. So you need to be able to find and access any of these things. And what are some of these things? Any of the FCC forms you submit, any notifications back from the FCC. Now, all of those things are kept and saved in your E-Rate account online. But it's a good idea, and many people do this, to download and save your own PDF version of these things. If they ask you for something and for some reason their system is down or your internet is down and you can't get to it, it's good to have your own backup. Any kind of correspondence we have with USAC, if you receive multiple bids, multiple quotes from different service providers when you're asking for a service or a construction, you have to keep both the winning and losing bid quotes. So you will have multiple companies reach out to you. Even the ones you don't pick, you've got to hold on to those as well. Of course, any contracts you sign, any legal documents you sign, if you had to make a decision about how you picked who you picked, that process, keep track of all that. And of course, SIPA applies throughout the whole life of whenever you're doing E-Rate. So documentation showing that you do have the filter, what is your internet safety policy, and whenever you had that meeting and that notice, that public meeting. All right, so what other questions do you have right now? Take a little pause, before we get into the E-Rate forms themselves. Do you have any other questions? Anything I haven't covered yet? Something you want a little more explanation of that was you weren't sure about? We do have a lot of information we're going through here in this 3-hour workshop, so we do kind of quick. But if there's something you need to know more about, let me know and I can explain it. Or is there something I haven't gone into yet that you are wondering about and hoping to learn about today? Type that into the questions section of your GoToWebinar interface. I want to make sure I cover as much as I possibly can for you all, anything you were looking for. Okay. All right, I don't see anything coming in. That's okay. Right, so next, let's get into the E-Rate forms themselves. As I said, there are multiple forms in the E-Rate process that you submit at certain times of the year. So this is the general E-Rate cycle. And there are different forms. Right now, we start off with the 470. Some of these forms you submit and some you don't always have to. It depends on your situation. And we will get into that as we dig deeper into all the details of these forms. The two in the middle, the 471 and the 486, everyone has to do every year. No questions asked. No, you must do both of those. The 470 at the beginning and the invoicing forms at the end, it depends. And I'll explain that as we talk about each one. The 470 is when you start out. That's what you'd be submitting right now if you're looking for a new service and you want someone to provide it. That opens up a competitive bidding process, and you might receive contacts from different providers. After you pick someone, a service provider and a service, you submit the 471 to USAC, where you respond to them. Here's who we've picked. Here's how much it's going to cost. After that, they review your application, and once they do make a review, if they do approve it, you get notification from them. Then you do the 46 saying, great, we would like that funding, and our service has started. And then the last form, invoice, it depends on how you're going to receive your discount. You have a choice of either having a discount on your bills by the service provider, or you pay your bills in full and then you request reimbursement yourself from USAC. If your service provider is requesting the money from USAC, they submit the 474 and then just discount you. If you're paying your bills in full and requesting the reimbursement from USAC, you do the 472. And then there's one form that's a one-time form, so it's not up here in the top here with the whole process. The 498, if you are going to do that 472 and request the reimbursement and the funding be sent to you directly, you have to give USAC the banking information. It's a direct deposit into whatever the library's bank account wants it to go to, and you do a one-time form of filling out that 498 to provide that information. So all of these forms are in the E-Rate portal. This is Epic. This is where you do all of your E-Rate work now, is in this one place. Epic, it stands, the acronym that EPC stands for E-Rate Productivity Center. It is pronounced Epic. And that is your one-stop shopping for everything E-Rate. There were, over the years, there's been forms that were in other places, and you'd have to go to different places to do different forms sometimes. But now, finally, everything is just in the E-Rate Productivity Center. So it really is real one-stop shopping for everything. So you go there to do all of your forms, submit them, certify them, check, look up and see what their status is, how they've progressed. If there are any questions from E-Rate, USAC about your application, they'll be in there. You can ask E-Rate questions. They do recommend that you only use Chrome or Firefox browsers. Internet Explorer does not play nice with Epic. Sometimes I've had people think they submitted a form and it turns out they didn't. It came back with saying it looked like they had hit submit and certified it and officially sent it in, and in reality it had never gone through. So try Chrome or Firefox. That is the main website for USAC to start doing E-Rate, usac.org/e-rate. So to start with, the USAC creates an account for your organization, for your library. So every library has an account in Epic. Almost all of our libraries in Nebraska have them. Way back when E-Rate first started in the late 90s, we did work to get every library that existed at the time set up with an account. So your library, if you've never done E-Rate before, there's a 99% chance that the library itself already has an account, and you just need to be added as a user, as the current new library director or whoever's going to be in charge of doing E-Rate for the library. And there always has to be someone who is designated as the account administrator. This is the person who's in charge of submitting the forms, making sure all the information is correct, keeping everything up to date. Typically, this is the library director, but if you're lucky enough to have someone else to do it, you can assign it to someone else. Account administrators can create additional user accounts if they want to. If you do need multiple people having access to your Epic account. This would be, like I said, if you're going to have someone else who will submit the forms, you can create them with an account. And there's different permission levels for this. Full permissions can do everything. Submit forms, certify, that's officially signing off on the forms, update the information, do all the communication with USAC. Partial permissions can complete a form but can't hit that final submit button. This is possibly if you have a staff person who have help you do the form, but you want to review it before you hit the submit, and then only the account administrator can click that button. And if you only, they can just go in and look at things and can't actually update or change things or submit any applications. So to get to your Epic account, you go to the main USAC website at usac.org/E-Rate. And on the main page here, there's two blue buttons that say sign in. They both do the same thing. The bar across the top always floats around up there as you go to different parts of the E-Rate website, but they give you this big button at the bottom left just to say also, you can also just click here. And so you click there to sign in. And the first thing you're going to get when you sign in is this big page with a whole bunch of information about logging into the system. And it is going to say here in the middle, which your eyes are going to go to, click the blue continue button, click the forgot password link, enter your username, which is your email address, and click reset, etc., etc. You do not have to do the forgot password and create a new password every time you log into your Epic account. This page needs a lot more flashing, bold, I don't know what, saying the first time you sign in, you have to do this, not every time. So I've on the screenshot circled it. It's only the first time. When you are set up as a user in Epic, you have to create your own password to start with the very first time you use the system. Your username is your email address. So you've just said, hey, I need to be a new user. This is my email address. Great. Now go and finish everything up yourself. Finish everything else up yourself. Unlike some systems where there's a separate button for creating a new user account and a different one for if you forgot, it's all mushed into this one page here. So it's very confusing. And I'm being very adamant about this because I have had too many libraries who I've worked with who tell me I have to reset my password every time I log in. Hang on, I got to think up a new password. Hang on, I got to create a new password. No, you do not have to create a new password every time you log in. You just have to create a new one when you first log into the system. So yeah, after you've done this and you know you have a password, you just ignore all that in the middle and just go and click continue every other time when you go to log in. Now, there is a time when your password will expire. They do have a 60 or 90-day expiration for security purposes, but if you are in that situation, it will then, after you've tried to log in, say, oh, your current password is expired, here, create a new one. So just the first time. If you've never used Epic before, you'll have to go and do this forgot password process. That's how they have you create your own new password, is that you pretend that you forgot what it was. Some things in the system are not as intuitive as they should be, but we work with what we got. So we're going to pretend this is our first time doing this. So we click continue. We do not have a password yet, so we're going to click the forgot password, type in our username, which is our email address, and click reset via email. So this is just like any other time you've forgotten a password for some online account you have. I know I've done it a million times. Same process, usual thing, you've done this before. So you'll get an email that says USAC password reset as the subject, and there's a link here to click on that's only good for 1 hour to reset your password. Click on that, create your password, and then it will bring you back to this screen again. As I said, you no longer have to do this over and over again. You did it once, that's it. You just click continue. Enter your username and password. Click this little box here to select the terms and conditions of using Epic and sign in. Now, Epic does have multi-factor authentication. This is something you may have used in other systems as well, where they send you a code to your cell phone or to your email. That's just a second thing that you have to, it's a code that changes every time. So it automatically fills in your email address. You say, send me that email, and then we'll say, okay, enter the code here. So then you pop over to your email and look for the one-time verification code. Now, this is something you will have to do every time you log in, is do this code. This is not a one-time thing. This is an every time you log in, you have to do, it takes 2 steps to log in, your password, then your code. This email and this code is only good for 10 minutes. When I do this, I take this code, enter it, and then I immediately, before I do anything else, go back to my email and delete this email that I just received. I don't want to, by accident, when I'm going to log in again next week, go and find and end up with an older email and put in the code, and then it'll say it's wrong, and then there'll be trauma. I'll be upset. I've had too many people do that. They say, oh, well, I don't know which one it is, so I'll just try this code, this email I had. No, that email is from a week ago. It's no longer any good. So delete these emails as soon as you've used the code. You no longer need it. So you enter the code and you click verify. Now, if your password has expired, you will get this. So this is just showing you in that if the only time you will have to create a new password after you've done it the first time is if it's expired, and this will come up and let you know that. You put in what your old password was, put in your new one, and create your new one. They do have the typical security rules for password. It has to be 8 characters long, an uppercase letter, lowercase letter, a number, and a special character. And it can't be any of your last 8 passwords. So what I do and I recommend is come up with a format, a template for your password, and then you only have to change one thing each time you have to reset it. So for example, E-rate 1 library ! That's my standard password. When it says it's expired, I change the number 1 to a 2. E-rate 2 library ! The next time, E-rate 3 library ! So I can remember this pattern that I've set, and I only have to change one thing every single time. And then by the time you go 1 through 9, you've done 8 passwords, and you can just start all over again, 1 through 9. I've been doing this for years, since Epic came out in 2016. So I have gone through 1 through 9 over and over and over again with what my format, my template is. So this will come up if your password has expired and you need to change it. But if your password has not expired, you'll just get put right into the dashboard and you're in their One Portal Epic system. Here you have 2 boxes in the center of the screen. The one on the bottom is that old emergency connectivity fund. It's still there because libraries are still wrapping up the invoicing and funding for that, but you cannot apply for it anymore. So we are going into the E-rate Productivity Center and you click anywhere here on this gray box. Now, and you'll go in and get into your applicant landing page. Now, this, I know you can't read everything on here. I just wanted to show you a screenshot of this is what the whole page looks like, and we are going to zoom into the different parts of it. So if you go into, at the very top, in the upper right here is where we can access all of our forms. The 4 forms that were on that page that I had before, your 470, 471, 486, and your invoicing forms. You access all of those from up here. You have any inquiries from USAC, you can look up and see if you have them here. Any notifications from the system you have here. If you scroll down in the middle, this is about in the middle of the page. This is an important number to be aware of. This is your entity number, also known as your build entity number or your BEN. This is a number that is assigned to your library. Kind of like a social security number for a person. It's assigned to you and lives with you and is with you for your life. This is assigned to the library and it was associated with the library for the lifetime of it being in E-rate. This will be on almost all the documentation that you receive or questions from USAC. They'll say your BEN, your BEN number, whatever. Whenever you need to reach out to them, they will ask you for this number every time. So this is where it is, right there on your landing page, right there in the middle, easy for you to know. It is called entity number, but sometimes they will say build entity number when they're talking to you, or they'll say BEN. What's your BEN? B-E-N for build entity number. And then at the bottom of the page, this is it's not very clear. It says FCC forms and post-commitment requests. This is where you can look up any form you have submitted. Going back to 2016 when this Epic system first was set up. So I get a lot of questions from your library say, did I submit the one this year? I don't remember, can you check? Or can I just look at last year's form because I'm gonna do the same thing this year and just repeat everything? Absolutely. And this is where you can look up your own forms. Excuse me. You choose the form type, which form do you want to look up, 470, 471, 486, and then you choose the appropriate funding year that you want to look up a form for. Here's the one I did search for 2024. And here's the 3 470s that I did that year, last year. And then the nickname here is a hot link. If you want to click on that, you can go into that actual form. And then their status is over here. Certified is the form that I submitted and actually went through the process. And complete is one that I started, but I never finished and it's still kind of floating around out there. And canceled is one that I did and realized afterwards, oh wait, that was wrong. I did it wrong. After I submitted it, I need to cancel it and do a new one. And that was my second one, was my new one. All right, so that's your landing page. Up at the top in the big blue bar, there's a bunch of different places that we can go and get different things, reports and look up records, but I'll talk about these two here, news and tasks. News up here, if you click on news, that will bring up notifications and things in the E-rate program. However, it will bring up reminders and inquiries and notifications of forms being submitted for every single school and library applying for E-rate. There's a search feature that is not that easy to use. So we'd recommend do not click on that news because you're just going to get everything in the whole system. Instead, you can just look up access your library's news by going here. If you click on welcome, and this is your library's name, you click on your library's name here. This is and you'll notice here it says training. This is a training portal. We have a training account that I can demo things in. So this is my training account that I've created for Gotham Public Library. So I click on the name of my library. And then this is my organization information. There's a whole bunch of different items here. This is where you can see what your Category 2 budget is. I mentioned that earlier, where they, based on what you've told them is your square feet, and do the calculation, tell you how much money you have left and how much you spent and how much you have left. That's where you find your Category 2 budget. But for news, there's another news item here. If you click on that, then it only brings up your library's notifications, not everyone's. So don't click this news over here. It'll be just everything and you'll get annoyed. Just go into your library's own record, click its news, and you'll just see your notifications. Tasks here is something else you need to keep an eye on. If there's ever a number in parentheses after tasks, that means there's something you need to work on. This first one here, I submitted a form. It's ready for to be certified. This is I was doing a spin change. The library has a BEN number. All internet service providers have service provider ID numbers. And then I've got a couple of 471s that I had started, but I haven't finished yet. If you've started a form and you're still working on it, the system is going to send you reminder emails, and it's going to keep nagging you until you either complete the form and submit it, or you delete it and get rid of it. So if you ever see any number here, see what tasks you have. If it's something you need to do, a form you had started, or many times you start a form, realize and say, oh wait, I need to go do something, or I gotta look something up, I forgot, or you get interrupted and you walk away. And then when you come back, you just start all over with a new form and submit that one. This old one is still out there floating around waiting, and the system's gonna keep nudging you, hey, 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 you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this. And they'll send you these emails. It will, and they're very confusing and misleading emails. The way it's worded is just the default wording. It says new task, create FCC form 471. This task was assigned to you. So this gives you the impression that, oh, I'm being told I have to do my 471. It's a new task assigned to me. But that's not what it actually is. What it really means is you started a 471 and we're just reminding you, don't forget to finish it. If it is one you need to finish, go in there and finish it. If not, I'm going to show you in a little bit when I look at forms, you can discard the form. You can go to here, you click on the form itself, there's a button to discard it, you can delete it totally, and then you'll stop getting these emails constantly. All right, you also have your own user information that you can edit and update and modify. Up in the upper right, there will be a circle here that'll have your initials. For this training account, I have Barbara Gordon is my library director. So I click on that there and I can access my profile, settings for the account itself. And this is also where you can sign out when you're done using the system. So I'm going to click on profile. And it is going to bring me to my main Epic user profile page with this button right in the middle that says edit profile. However, that does not allow you to edit the profile, unfortunately. For whatever technical reasons that I've never had explained to me, they have made this button up here be the one, manage Epic user profile, that will actually get you into making any changes to your own account. And there is a notice in red down here at the bottom that says, please use this button up here. Do not use the edit profile under the user picture. Okay. But when you do that, this is where we can change our name, phone number, address, everything related to us as a user. You'll note the email address cannot be changed. Your email address is in stone. Once you decide that's my email for doing E-Rate, it is my username. It cannot be changed. Depending on how you have staff come and go, you may have to change who can access this account here. So you're a library director, you're leaving your library, a new one's coming in. You want to hand over, usually you want to hand over passwords, all the information they need to do their job. For E-Rate purposes, if you're using a generic email, like so-and-so public library at Gmail, you can just go in here, change the name to the new person's name, and they have access to that email. They'll be able to start using the account. They can use the password you give them, or they can use that forgot password link and make up a new one for themselves, but it's all using the same email as the account. However, if you give people emails based on their name, like Christa.Porter at Gmail, if that would be my email address, then you would have to create a new user account for the new person so that their email would be their login. And then you hand over administrator control from the current account administrator, the current director, to the new one. Now, sometimes you will have that transition period where people are there at the same time and there's an easy handover, no problem. Current director goes in, creates a user account for the incoming director, and hands over control to their account. Done. And now the new director is the account administrator. If you do not have that good turnover, the previous director leaves and there's a couple of months before you have a new person and there's no way to do the handover, that's okay too. You can just call USAC, and there's an 800 number that's at the end of the slides here, and you explain your situation. They know this happens. You say, hi, I'm the new director at so-and-so public library. I don't have any passwords. I don't know anything. Please help me. And they will work with you and get you all set up. So to do the managing users, if you can do it yourself, back on your landing page, you click up in the upper right here, manage users, and you select your library by checking in the box next to it. Generally, you're going to just have one choice here, which seems a little weird. Why do I have to select myself? The system is built in case you are like a library system with multiple branches, or so you possibly have multiple places where they might work. So you just pick your library, and then you can either create a new user, add and remove existing ones, or manage the permissions on whoever is already in here. So we're going to create a new user for our assistant director, who we also want to have do E-Rate for us. So here I've put Cassandra in here. She's the assistant director. Here's all her info. And then I enter her email. And you can see here, hers is based on her name. Once I create this, an email will be sent to her saying you have a user account has been set up for you in Epic. Go there now and create your password so that you can then log in and use the system. And you go through that whole, I'm a brand new user and I need to do the forgot password. Below this section of this page is where the user permissions are that I mentioned earlier. You can give people permission per form if you only want them to do certain things and not other things. Or you can do all of them. Everyone gets full access to everything if you want to. So you just pick and choose what you want this new person to be able to do. If they're going to be, you've got one person as the account administrator and should be in charge of everything, you're going to want to do full rights across the board. Now, if you do need to hand over, if you are able to hand over administrator control yourself to someone else, you go into your organization's account here. So this is where I went in and clicked on that news by clicking on the library's name. And then the upper right here, there's this extra button where there's tons of things you can do in here. So you got to click this button with the 3 dots, and it opens up this pull down menu. You'll see here there's multiple locations to do all sorts of things. You can create a forms from here too. It's so much here. But what we're going to do is we're going to modify our account administrator and our general contact. Both of those things you want to hand over from an old director leaving and hand over to the new one. So this is if you can do that. So we're going to go to modify account administrator first. And I'm going to show you here how I had to do it. This is another situation you might be in where I got married and my name changed. So my email address also changed. At the state, my Christa.Burns email address, which is my maiden name, that email was going to be turned off at some point. It is no longer my email. So it would no longer work in the E-Rate system. There'd be nowhere for them to email that verification code or anything. So I had to well, play the game here. I had to create a new account, a second account for myself with the email address of my with my new email address, my new last name, Christa Porter at Nebraska.gov. So this is another situation you might have to do as well for yourself. But this is also how you would do it if you were handing over from one person, you to a new person. So you uncheck the box for the old one, and check the box for the new one. Continue. It will say this is what's going to happen. The current account administrator is Christa.Burns, and the new one will be Christa.Porter. Click submit, and it changes. And then just do the same thing for the general contact. Account administrators for running everything in your library account. General contact is the person whose name comes up automatically when you're submitting the forms. Same thing, uncheck the old one, Burns, check the new one, Porter, continue. It's going to be switched over. So depending on your situation, and there's multiple ones, you may have to do this kind of thing these various different ways. Now, there's also only a certain time of year when you can make these changes to your profile and to your organization profile. This is called the EPIC administrative window. It is open right now. They do lock down your profiles right before you do the second form in the process, the 471. They need the information to be finalized in there and not to change while reviews and things are being done to the application. So the administrative window opened October 15th, and it's going to close sometime before the 471 window opens. The 471 also has a filing window, a certain few time of year when you can submit it. Generally, that's sometime in January. Date to be determined yet, not has been announced. So right now, go in, check your library's account, check your user account, make sure everything's correct before things move along and get locked down. The kind of things you would update, of course, your account information, address, emails, if you need to add a new user, all of that, and your square footage. Make sure that is correct so that when you are submitting your forms and the calculation will be done correctly for your category 2, and if you're doing the new hotspot purchases. Your organization info is right next. The link to do that is right next to your manage users link. Same kind of thing, check your library, go into manage organization, and then this is a very long page that I'm going to bump down to go through all of it. Basic information of the library. If the library moves to a new address, you can update that here. We never really use latitude, longitude. It's just some leftover option in here. Urban or rural status determination is here. If you think it's wrong, you could change it. Like I said, that's based on the census data, so not generally something you would change. Below that, you've got other ways of contact if you want to put in an additional phone number, email address, website URL. And then this is important, what kind information about your library. If you're a public library, you check public. If you're a tribal library, you check tribal. You also should check main branch if it's not already selected. Even though you're the only branch, you do also need to be designated as the main branch for the system to know who you are. So bare minimum, public and main, or tribal and main. And then if there's anything else you have, do you have a bookmobile? Are you building new construction? Check all those. There's a question about, is this library part of a library system? We do not have library systems in Nebraska the way that E-Rate thinks of them. They're thinking of you join a system and you pay a membership fee and you all share an online catalog and you all do work together. We do have our regional library systems in the state. They are not, we use the same wording, but it's not what their definition of library system is. So you're not a member of like our different regional library systems. You just happen to be in their area and they are consultants and trainers for you. So you would say no to that here. And at the very bottom of the organization information page, that's where you enter your square footage. This is where you put that square footage for all that category 2 applications and anything else that's going to use that. So make sure that is correct. This is also where you can see if you are associated with the correct school district. By default, which one they put there, you can look up another one. And your FCC registration number. This is a number for doing business with the FCC. You probably already have one. If you don't, there's a link on our website where we can look up and get one for you. It takes 5 minutes. All right, so we're a little bit after 11 o'clock. So I want to take a little 5-minute break now because we're about halfway through the workshop. But before I do that, what questions do you have right now? It's right about anything that I've covered in the morning, in the first half of this workshop. Is there something you want to know more about, something you had a question about, something you need more detail on, something I haven't covered yet that you want to make sure that I cover or that you're wondering about, some situation in your library? Type into the question section of your GoToWebinar interface. Nothing? All right, not a problem. All right, well, we're going to take about a little 5-ish minute break. Let's see here. So before, let's come back at 10 after at 11:10 Central Time. So a little bit, about 6-minute break. And then I will pick up with talking about our E-rate forms, and we'll go on a demo of the forms and see how they all work. So get up, walk around, take a break, hit your restroom, update your coffee, whatever you need to do. If you think of any questions while we're on break, type it into the question section and I'll grab them and answer them when we come back. So I'll see you all back here at 11:10 Central Time. There we are. We are back. I am back. All right. Okay. Looks like no questions came in while we were on break. That's okay. Don't forget, type anything in there if you do have any questions as I'm going along. The first form in the E-rate process is the Form 470. And this is what you would be submitting right now in the fall to start your E-rate process for funding year 2025. Usually this form goes live on July 1st, the beginning of the funding year. This year it was delayed because they had to add in the hotspots onto the form. So it didn't come out a month or so late. But it is available now, so we're good to go and we can submit our 470. The 470, the purpose of the 470 is to open a competitive bidding process, looking for providers to provide you with a service, internet service of some sort, equipment that you need to buy, do construction, whatever you need to do, unless there is an exemption. We'll get into the couple of reasons why you would not need to do a 470. So you're going to put in this 470 anything you're looking to get an E-rate discount on. Now, there are a couple of situations when a 470 is actually not required, and you do not have to go through the whole competitive bidding process of multiple vendors reaching out to you and having to make a choice and a decision. The first one is if you are currently in the middle of a multi-year contract. You have a contract. Many times service providers will do a contract with you that goes for 3 or 5 years, locks you into only have to pay the same amount with no price increases over that time, and it locks you into being their customer for that amount of time. When we did the first year of that contract, you would have done a 470 looking for some service from a provider, and that's when you would have signed your contract and started off. But every subsequent year that you're in that contract, you do not want to do a 470 because you do not want to open up a new competitive bidding process. You're already in a legal contract, a legal agreement with someone, and you don't want to open up to do another one. So if you are any beyond that first year, you don't do a new 470. After that contract expires, then you would do a new 470 and start up possibly another 3 or 5 year contract. You do still have to do the other forms in the process, though. You would just start with the 471 in the beginning of the funding year, sometime in January. So you do still have to, every year of that contract, basically what you're telling USAC with the 471 is, yes, we're still in that contract. Yes, we're still getting that service. Yes, we're still doing that. So you still do that every year. You just don't have to do the 470. Another reason why you would not have to do a 470 is if you can find really fast, good speed internet at a good price. This is what they call, this is under category 1, so this is for your basic monthly internet. It's their low-cost, high-speed internet access. So if you are receiving or can find a service provider that costs less than $300 a month and you're paying for at least 100 megabits per second speed, download speed, then you don't have to do a competitive bidding process. This is something called commercially available business class internet option, CABIO. And it does have to be commercially available business class. Libraries should not be paying for or getting residential pricing and residential internet service. You need business class internet service because you have so many computers and people using it. So if you are in this situation, you don't have to do the 470. This is something that E-Rate created because they wanted to encourage service providers to give high speed at a good price. That's the whole point of E-Rate, is to have accessible, something you can afford, affordable, good affordable internet service. Now, in the past, it was really hard to get to that speed, that 100 megabits. We didn't have a lot of providers offering it, but now it is out there, way more common. So if you are currently in an account that you're getting this, you're paying for 100 megabits per second, it costs less than $300 a month, you get to skip the 470 entirely. You just jump right to the 471 and say, hey, we have this. There's a button to check, and I'm going to show you how that works when you do the demo of the 470 and the 471 that says, yes, we have this. This is what we're getting. You just upload a copy of your contract or your agreement showing here's the amount and how much we're paying for. So I'm hoping more of our libraries will notice this and realize they don't have to do the 470. They don't have to go through this whole process, this whole competitive bidding and picking vendors and possibly having vendors reach out to me. It's very much more common now that we're paying the less than 300 and getting that 100 megabits per second. So check your bills, check and see if you have this. If you do, everything I'm going to talk about next, all about the 470, you don't have to do. There's also a category 2, same kind of thing, effective just for libraries, started last year, where if for your category 2, those internal connections, that pre-discount cost on the calculation, if it's $3,600 or less per year, in a single funding year, then you also do not have to do a 470. So look at what you're going to try and purchase. If it's going to be $3,600 or less, you don't have to do the 470. Same thing, you just jump to the skip and wait for the 471, and then just report what you're going to be purchasing. So those are our exceptions. Look into them. But if you do need to do a 470, so for example, your cost is more expensive, or you're looking for a new provider, or you're looking for a new fiber to be run, et cetera, then you'd go from your applicant landing page. Right at the top here is your 470 link. And that will bring you right into the first page of your 470. Now, remember earlier I mentioned that whenever you started up an application and you let it hanging there, it's going to be floating around in your tasks and they're going to keep sending you reminders. This is where that starts happening. As soon as you click this button here and open up this page, a task has been created. You haven't even entered anything yet, haven't typed in anything, haven't gone on from this page. In the system, it's already got a task and it's going to start reminding you. Now, you may right at this point say, oh, wait, I don't have time to do this, or I got interrupted, or I forgot I need more information, and just back out of and just, sign out or walk away. It's still floating around out there. So be aware of that. But here is where you can get rid of those. So if you realize this is not a form I wanted to do, or you realize you got some tasks floating around there that are old ones that I don't need to submit because I did do my 470 or my 471, it's on all the E-Rate forms. Click the discard form button. It'll confirm, are you sure you want to, and then it will delete it, and then you won't keep getting those reminder emails. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on your tasks and keep them cleaned up. But to go forward with this application, across the top, there's a blue bar that's going to move along as we get through each step in the form. Here's our basic library info is automatically filled in, and we can give it we need to give it a nickname. This is something, whatever you want to call it, just for your own purposes, for just tracking this application for yourself. This form, the application will be assigned like a 10, 12-digit number, but this is easier to keep track of if you call it something. In this case, I'm just shows FY 2025 470, so this is my 470 for 2025. You can do whatever you want. It's a free text field, whatever will remind you about what this application was for. And then you save and continue to go on to the next page. This form saves as you go. So as you're going, if you stop in the middle and realize, oh, I got interrupted, or I need more info, or I can't finish it now, that's okay. It saves. It will be in your tasks, of course. And when you go back into a form that you're in the middle of working on, it'll drop you in, and you can pick up where you left off. The save and share button, that is only if you have the situation where someone else can complete and fill in the information of the form for you, but you only want you to be the one that has the authority to click the actual submit button. Generally, you're the one submitting it, doing it. So save and continue. This just confirms, here's the application type info. This does give you a reminder. This is what we think your library is. If you need to make any changes, go out and fix it. Make sure you do it during that administrative window before things get locked down. You can see here, there's always a discard form button as you're going through the application. So at any time in the form, you can say, oh wait, I screwed up totally. I just want to start over, and you can discard this one. There's also now a back button, so you can move back to a previous section of the form if you just want to fix something. And we are going to save and continue. Consultant and contact information is the next thing it asks for. There are companies you can hire to help you submit your application and do it for you. Generally, this is for large library systems or large school districts that have such a complex application they need someone to hire. I am your state E-rate coordinator. I'm kind of like, I do consulting things for you as far as helping you, know how to do the forms and training, but I'm not that kind of consultant. You don't pay me to do this. It's just my job. So most of you would just not have one, and that's fine. But then, are you the main contact person? You say yes, and it will pop in your user info. Save and continue. And then we can choose which category of service we are going to do on this application form. You can do a form just for category 1, you can do one just for category 2, or you can do for both. So you can submit multiple Form 470s. Sometimes it's good to do that to keep category 2 and 1 separate in your head and having 2 separate forms. Category 1 is for my monthly internet. Category 2 is where I'm buying some equipment, and I can keep them, in my own, organized separately. So you can do that if you want to. We're also recommending that if you're going to do the new hotspots, that you do it as its own 470. You might have your monthly internet in the library, and then you're doing a hotspot lending program. Because it's something new, we're not sure how quickly they will advance through review, and if there'll be a lot of questions or confusion. So to keep your regular monthly internet application just doing its usual, it moves along easy, we're suggesting that you do 2 separate 470s. So one of them will be for your hotspots, and one will be for your regular monthly internet. And this demonstration that I'm doing here, I'm doing all as one big application just to show you how it all works, but we're recommending that you do separate. So in my case, I am doing one big 470 for one category 1 and category 2 altogether. Next, it's going to ask if we have an RFP. Do we have a request for proposal or a request for quote for this? Generally, you can put some basic information in your E-rate application itself. There is a little narrative box where you can put some minor details. If you have a major project like a construction, fiber construction being run, or a new library building or a new computer library building, you're going to want to give a lot more detail and information to your service providers. So you may want to attach a separate document. So I'm going to say yes, we do have one. And then it's a separate Word doc that I have. You can click upload and navigate to wherever it is, or you can click and drag a file there. It does a quick little virus check of your document, and then it's uploaded in there. And now you can use that, and it's already connected and attached to your application for service providers to look at. And save and continue. Since I did upload an RFP, it's going to ask me which categories is this RFP for? Is it for category 1 or category 2? Both, whichever. I'm going to say this one just has to do with category 2, just with equipment that I'm purchasing. Save and continue. And now this is where we start adding our service requests, as they call it. So this is the things that I want to get an E-rate discount on. As I said, there's a little narrative. There is a narrative box here, a free text field. You can type in some basic information if you want to. Might be things like, we will stop accepting bids after this date, make our decision on this choice, on this point, any disqualifications, whatever, some short information. Something, so there's a little bit you can put in here, but if it's something really complex, having that separate RFP is good. It's helpful. So we're going to click the big blue button to add a new service request. In the form now here, they have this hierarchy menu, so you dig down, helping you navigate into what you may be applying for. So your first choice here is between seeking bids for internet access or data transmission, or seeking bids for network equipment. And we're going to look at both of those. So first, I'm going to do just my basic monthly internet application. So I just seek bids for internet access. And then I have a whole bunch of choices here. Our basic internet access, seek bids for internet access and data transmission, fiber, non-fiber, cable, DSL, copper, satellite, basically any kind of connection I might be available out there is my first choice. You can do data transmission, internet access without data, data without internet access. This is for sometimes for large school districts, and depending on how you have a connection, these are two separate purchases. You can build your own network, not very common, but it's an option. And this is also where we start having a new choice for doing hotspots. We can seek bids for internet services, so the service that would go along with hotspots we already own if we want to. And I'm going to show you how to do that after we do this basic application, this basic monthly one. For the hotspots, they've actually given you the option to either come at it from the service side or the hotspot device side. So we can start here and saying I want internet service, and then I want to add hotspot, and then buy the actual hotspots. Or you can go in by saying I'm going for equipment, I'm going to buy a hotspot, and I want to tack on service. Depends on where you go from it. But we're going to do this one, just our basic monthly. And then I can seek bids for internet access and data transmission services, bundled or from one or more service providers. And our other choice is for data plans using air cards for mobile devices. This would be for bookmobiles or school buses. If you have those, that would be the choice to use for those. But we are going to do this the regular old internet that comes into our building. So we just choose the first choice. And now we have where we give the details. So we've worked down through the menu to here. Okay. Where we give the details. So quantity is how many internet connections do we want? We usually just want one connection into the building. Number of entities served. We are a single library, so we would do one for that. Do we want someone to install it? Just in case we might be switching service providers or switching services, I always say yes. And then we choose our speed. The minimum capacity and maximum capacity is the speed of internet that we're looking for. So here's where I've entered this information. One connection, one library. Yes, I want it installed. Now for the speed, your minimum, you want whatever speed you're going to end up with to fall between your minimum and maximum on your 470. So I always think of the 470 as a wish list. What is the extreme, the best, the biggest thing you can get, and then whatever you get is going to fall in the middle there. So for minimum, I did 50 megabits per second. You could even go lower, 25, just to cover all your bases. When you do your second form, the 471, whatever speed you tell them you ended up getting has to fall in between these two speeds. If it's less or if it's more, you can't, your E-rate application will be denied because it doesn't match up. It has to fit into the 470. So I did maximum capacity 5 gigabits per second. Right now, I know we've got libraries maybe getting 1 gig, but it could be more in the future. So think big if you want to, go even higher. This number, I don't remember what how high up it goes, but it goes above 5, and it goes down for minimum like to 10 or something megabits per second, really, really slow. but just make sure you have it enough of a spread. And then we are going to save this request. And as soon as once we save it, it has started a table here of all the things you're going to be asking for. And there is my request for basic internet. Next, we're going to add a service request for a dark and lit fiber. So this is looking for anyone to provide me with fiber that's out there available or dark that needs to be installed. So to do the dark/lit fiber connect request. So this would be for this would be the kind of what you would have to choose if you want to do that special construction. Unfortunately, in the 470, doesn't have the word special construction, but this is how you would start it off. So you add another service request, and this time we choose the middle one. Want to purchase data transmission service only. This is okay. And then you've got without internet access, but the second choice is what you want to choose. I want a least capacity on dark or least lit network that will be used for data transmission. And now you'll see this will open up, ask the same kind of questions as the basic monthly one, but it has your dark fiber and your lit fiber. You have to do both. It requires both. One connection, your minimum, maximum capacity, same thing, your speed. Because we said that it is the RFP, we would click the RFP for this because maybe we would create an RFP for the construction project. That's something also about the special construction. If you are doing that, we do have templates for an RFP specifically for that we will work with you on filling out. So for this purpose, you would definitely want to attach that RFP. We're only one library, and yes, we would like someone to install our fiber, please. Thank you. And save this one. And now your dark and lit fiber choice is now on your list as well. You'll notice too, you may have noticed that there's this installment payment plan that popped up question. This is if you have to pay things over time. If you do have that kind of agreement, then you would say yes. If not, you would say no. For construction, it is for special construction. Generally, we're paying all in one shot, so that question is no would be perfectly fine for that. All right, so there's your monthly and your dark and lit fiber. Now let's look at doing that hotspot, the different options for doing the new hotspot choice. So we're going to click Add New Service Request, that blue button in the middle again. And I'm going to first show you how to do it by looking for the service first, and then I'll show you how to do it looking for the device first. So we're going to, again, seek bids for internet access or data transmission. But in this case, instead of choosing the ones we did before, we're going to do that bottom choice that says, I seek bids for wireless internet service for hotspots. Ask kind of the same questions again, and remember, this is off-premises use, so this is the hotspots you are lending out. This is not things for use within the library. So we would say how many hotspots we want. Speed isn't a question here. They don't get installed. If you did have an RFP, maybe you wrote up a little document, that was something you could attach. But you'll note down here, it does have this extra box now to check if you want to, that says, please select this option to create an accompanying Category 1 hotspot devices request for this hotspot service request. So in this case, I said, I need hotspot service for devices. Now you may already own the hotspots, but you now just need E-rate to continue the service. You purchase the hotspots with the Emergency Connectivity Fund, or you purchased it with a grant or some other funding, but you just need now to have internet E-rate to keep the service going. And you can do that if you want to by not checking this box, but if you do need to purchase hotspots, you check that box and they do it as a whole combination thing. If we do check that box, it then pops up a section about, okay, do you, how many devices do you want? Do you need them installed, etc. Now, if we go from the other direction, if we go by, I want to request equipment. So we're saying, I'm starting thinking about this as I need to buy hotspots. You choose the second choice from the first option when you go in to do a 470. I seek bids for network equipment. And now this says things about leasing and doing my own network, but the third choice is I seek bids for hotspots. So this is if I need to purchase new hotspots. And in this case, the little box that says, please select this option if you would like to create an accompanying Category 1 wireless internet service request to be delivered with these hotspots. And it also says applicants may not seek support for hotspots without a service request, an accompanying service request. So you can apply for E-rate just for your service if you already own the hotspots. But if you come from this direction and say, I want E-rate discount on the hotspot devices, it's going to force you to also get the service. You can't just do the hotspots. So I checked that, and then now here's where I filled in the info. I want 10 hotspots, 10 connections. Yes, I would like them installed, and I did happen to write up a RFP about this new service I'm going to do. And we save request, and then that also gets added to our table. Now, remember I said at the beginning, we are recommending that if you're going to do hotspot, that you do those as a separate 470. I'm just for demo example purposes showing you how this works in one giant application. So we're recommending that these two here, the hotspots and the service, will be it's a 470 all on its own. So you would give that one maybe a nickname of, funding your 2025 hotspots. So you know that that's the hotspot 470. This is just for demonstration purposes. You see it all there. So once you do have all your category 1s requests, whatever you're looking for, done, then you save and continue rather than adding any new service requests. We don't have anything else we need to add. We're going to save and continue. Because we had selected that we were doing both category 1 and category 2, it now bumps me to entering my category 2 service requests. If I had not selected category 2, it would just go on to finish up the form. So works very similar to the category 1. We're going to add a new service request, and it has its own menu as well. You're looking for equipment is first choice, basic maintenance, or operation and management of your internet or internal connections. So we're going to start off by saying I want to buy equipment, and it's only the one choice. So then immediately you just get a pull down menu of all the different types of pieces of equipment you can get an E-rate discount on. So your cables, your racks, your routers, wireless access points, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to choose cabling. I need some new wiring in my computer lab. And depending on what choice you choose, it may ask slightly different questions. So for example, for cabling, it wants to know, well, how many feet of cable do you want? How many feet do you need? I said 1,000. I don't know if that's a good number. As just a round number I picked. I don't know how many feet generally a computer lab needs, but I did 1,000. You can choose manufacturer if you want to, but you will notice if you open up this pull down menu, it always says so-and-so company or equivalent. It's required that it's required that you always say equivalent. So they built it into the form because you may say, I like Belden, but by the time your service provider is ready to install, they had to buy a different brand. And you want to make sure you don't lose your E-rate just because of the brand you picked. So you can pick if you want, or you can say no preference. A number of entities served, we're just one library. And yes, I would like someone to install my cable. Thank you. And because this is a category 2, and I had selected earlier that the RFP was for category 2, that's checked. It also has this box here now that says, please select this option if you would like to create an accompanying category 2 BMIC request. That's the basic maintenance. So this is the ongoing maintenance, installation, repairs, and upkeep. Previously, you had to create a request for the equipment and then create a second request for the basic maintenance. Now they said, would you like to just check this box and we'll do it automatically all in one shot? Yes, please, definitely. And then it just pre-fills everything in down there. And when we click Save Request here, we now have 2 items. One is the actual cable itself, and one is the basic maintenance of that cable. Boom. And there's our category 2 request done. Now, if you have other things you're going to be purchasing in the next year, you would go in and add those as well, adding new service requests each time. So you're always going to be thinking about what am I going to do in 2025 and adding them all on here. So I'm not going to show you how to do all of them over and over again, but I'm going to show you what it looks like in the end after I've done this multiple times. So I go in over and over again, adding in all the different pieces of equipment I think I might buy in the next year. And in the end, I end up with this big table with all of the different things I added. So I went in a second time and did routers and their basic maintenance. I went in a third time and did switches. I need 1 switch, 1 router, and I went in a 4th time, added a 4th service request for wireless access points that I need 3 of those. So just keep going in, adding new service requests, and picking your different pieces of equipment until you're done. Once you have all of the different category 2 equipment on here, you save and continue. And it's going to ask if you have a technical contact person. You may be lucky enough to have one. This would not be Sherm. First, I'll tell you that. It doesn't mean that you put Sherman's name in here, Andrew Sherman. This is if you have a local person that if a service provider has questions, you would prefer them to call this person rather than you as the main user, as the library director. If it's just you, you would say no, there's nobody else. But if you're lucky enough to have someone else, you'd say yes and enter their information. You can give them a user account in Epic. So that's what this search Epic system button would do. But unless they need to actually fill out your forms, there's no reason for an IT person, I think, to have one. So I just did enter details manually, and then I just typed in Luke's name, phone number, and email address here. And save and continue. But next, it's going to ask if there are any state or local procurement requirements, any bidding requirements. So if your municipality has any rules about if something is over a certain amount, you have to go through this web page or submit it this way, and then it would have a place where you can add a link to a page or upload a document, whatever. I'm going to say no for now, there isn't. And now we can review our form. We've entered everything we need for the 470, and we can click review. And what this is going to do, it is going to create a PDF of this application that we can look at, a draft PDF. This can take 3, 4, 5 minutes sometimes, depending on how busy their servers are. You can refresh this page and see if a button comes up saying, hey, it's done, or you keep an eye on this tasks. That's where it's going to end up. If this number here goes up, you know it's ready to look at. So this went from 2 to a 3, and now I have a task that says I need to certify my 470 that I submitted. I click on that, and now I have a link where I can click and look at the draft version of this. You'll notice this blue button here is kind of grayed out. It's light blue. It's not clickable yet because I cannot continue on to actually certifying. Certifying is signing off on this application, actually submitting it, until I check this box, certifying the information in the PDF is correct. So I have to check that box to make this button go live to actually finish up the form. If you're sure that you just did it, you know everything's correct, you don't have to look at the PDF if you don't want to. You can just say, yes, it's correct, I just did it, and continue. But if you do want to look at it, you click on that. It just shows everything that you entered in a PDF form. All your library info, category 1 requests, category 2 requests, technical contact, all there. This is just something for you to look at. There's no need to save or download or print out this PDF. We're going to get a final version of it after we submitted the form that will have the date and time that we actually submitted it on it. And that'll be our final one. That's the one that you want to save. This is just for you to look at to make sure you did everything correctly. Double check before you submit. But if it is all correct, you click the box and you continue to certification. Send for certification, that is for that situation, only for that situation where I only have the ability to create the form, but I can't submit it. I only have the permission to do that. I have to have someone else do the submitting. The wording is a little confusion. But if you're the one doing it, you just continue to certification. It says, are you sure you want to? Yes. And this is where you agree to all the legalities, all the legal requirements for participating in the E-rate program. I recommend you read all these because you are agreeing, legally that yes, I will follow all the rules. If you don't follow any rules, you could get in trouble. And there are people who are in jail for not following the rules. It is a federal program with federal requirements. It's generally things like giving a vendor a heads up on what you're going to be applying for, gift rules where, hey, the vendor says, I'll give you free internet at your house if you have the library go with us for their service provider, obviously illegal. Do not do those kind of things. So you'll notice here, these boxes are not checked and our certify button at the bottom is light, so you can't click on it right yet. So I'm gonna zoom in here so you can see. I certify the applicant includes libraries or library consortia that are eligible. I certify that RFP will be available. I certify I will obtain the required documents for 10 years. So this is just agreeing to all these different rules and things that I explained to you. So you do have to check all the boxes before you can click the certify button. But once you have, then this light button goes blue and you can click it. It will confirm, are you sure you want to? Yes. And now that task disappears from your tasks and your 470 is submitted. Now, you want to get a copy of the final PDF for your records. We go back to our landing page. Anywhere where this logo is here on the left, when you're navigating around the system, it says Universal Service Administrative Company, has all these blue boxes. You can always click on that to get back to your landing page. It's a hot link to always bring you back home. So as I said earlier, we can look up any of our forms that we've submitted. So now that we've submitted that one, we can look it up, Form 470 and 2025 funding year. I can click on, and you can see it is certified, means I submitted it. Click on the nickname for it, and then it brings up, yes, this is a long page. This is our application that we submitted just in the system, so you can look at it there. But if you want to get that PDF to download for your records, at the very top, and we're going to zoom in, it says generated documents. Generated documents. You click on that, and it brings you to a link that says original version. Click there, and it pops open the PDF, same as your previous draft PDF, but, and I'm just going to jump down to the end, it now has the certified timestamp of the date and time when you actually submitted this. So this is your official final version. This is the one that you would then download and save, print out, however you like to keep your E-rate paperwork. After you submit a 470, you receive a receipt notification in your news feed in your Epic account. Every time you submit a form to E-rate, they send you a notification saying they got it. So there's always back and forth, back and forth. You always have a confirmation of that for all the forms. You can make some minor corrections if you need to. So if you realize after you submitted it that you had a typo, something minor, they call them ministerial and clerical errors, you can make some minor fixes. It also gives you what's called your allowable contract date. The competitive bidding process must last for at least 28 days at a minimum. So after you submit your 470, you have to wait 28 days before you can make a decision, sign a contract, and then submit your Form 471, the second form of the process. The FCC rules state you have to give that amount of time for service providers to notice that you had a 470 out there and to respond to you. So once you submit your 470, you wait for library providers to reach out to you, minimum of 28 days. It can be longer, but you gotta do that minimum. You can see your notification also from when you go into your form, you looked up your form. Next to generated documents, there's a news link that's specific news about this application. And that opens up says your Form 470 was successfully posted. The allowable contract date is December 18th, 2024. So that is how long I have to wait before I can make any choices, before I can sign any new contracts, if I need to sign something new, before I can do my 471. Now, if these change, you realize after submitting your 470 that the changes you need to make were way wrong, you made a total mistake, or that you wanted to rewrite it totally and ask for something different, or you don't want what you were asking for here, you can cancel your 470. Same thing, you go and look it up. You've got your generated documents, news, you go to related actions instead for this 470. And there are some things here, other things you can change, main contact, technical, but the last choice is cancel this 470. So as long as you haven't gone any farther in the process beyond just submitting this, you can always cancel it. You do have to give a reason. Your reason could be, in this case, I wrote this was a duplicate. I did a second one by accident. I've had libraries do that. They submit one, and then a month later, they can't remember, so they just do another one. Just use that search feature to see if you've done one, but it happens. Or if you say, I've changed my mind, or whatever reason, you have to give a reason, and then you cancel it. Are you sure you want to cancel? Yes. There is no review by USAC of this to approve your cancellation. You're deciding to cancel it, but they do want a reason. And now if you looked up all your 470s for the year, this was one I did for 2024, you'll see the status for that one is canceled. This is one where I made a mistake or something, and here's my good one, the certified one. So now when service providers are looking for your 470s, they will not respond to this one because it's the one you canceled. They should only respond to the one that's the certified one you actually submitted. All right, any questions about the 470 and anything in that form? Type into your questions section. Okay, I see. Okay, I see there's a question that just popped up. Let me read it. It's kind of long. Verify that if I'm in a multi-year. Yes. The answer is yes. But here, I'll read the question. The question says, verifying that if I am in a multi-year Cabio agreement, that's one of those where it costs less than $300 a month and you're paying for 100 megabits per second. If I am in a multi-year Cabio agreement and I did not file a 470 when that agreement was signed, I can still file a 471 to request a discount when the filing window opens for funding year 2025. Yes, exactly. That is exactly how you would do that. The Cabio option of that less than $300, 100 megabits per second overwrites, it's, I don't want to use the word, any other, having to do a multi-year contract and doing a 470 and the whole competitive bidding process. So it precedes that. So yes, you can just do that. What you would have to do is when you do, and I'm going to show you that in a second here, when you do your 471, you would upload that contract. So they have the record that is what you are paying and what the speed is. So yes, you do not have to do a 470. Good question. Okay, awesome. Thanks. You're welcome. On to competitive bidding. Now, if you did do a 470 and you do have multiple companies that might be reaching out to you, you do have to go through the competitive bidding process. Now, as we were just discussing and I explained earlier, if you meet any of those exemptions for 470, this whole competitive bidding thing that I'm going to talk about right now does not apply and you don't have to do. But for major projects like fiber special construction, or if something's more expensive, purchasing equipment and whatnot, you would have to go through this. So competitive bidding is a formal process to choose who you're going to go with and to provide you with your service. This must, as I said, must last at least 28 days when you do your 470. And I'm repeating this a lot and it's in red and I'm being very pushy about it because I have had libraries who have not waited the 28 days. They've signed a contract too soon after doing the 470. And in that case, they lost out on their E-rate. There's nothing we can do about that if you've not waited those 28 days. And you do have to wait. So if you do a 470, you've got to wait 28 days before you sign anything. If your service providers are being pushy and saying, well, we need you to sign this to do it, you've got to tell them, not if I want E-rate. I need to wait. And they should know that. But during this 28 days minimum, they will reach out to you. They might have questions. You can compare the offers that you might receive. You must have a fair and open bidding process, meaning you treat all your vendors the same. They all are given the same information. If someone asks a question of you and it is enough that it relates to the application, one vendor asks you a question, you have to provide the answer to all of them. Your vendors cannot be involved in your 470. So meaning you can't reach out to a company first and say, hey, I want to get E-rate. I'm going to do a 470. Tell me what you want me to write in here so that I can then pick you. No. That is colluding with them. That's legal. Can't do that. You can reach out to them to ask, hey, what kind of services do you offer? How much does it cost? Great, thank you. I'll be in touch. Just don't mention the word E-rate to them at all. That has nothing to do with it. You're just trying to find out what they have available. When you do make your choice, you must choose what is the most cost-effective bid, with cost being the primary factor. Not the only factor, but primary. Meaning it's the most important thing, but there are other things you're going to want to take into consideration that are important to you when you are choosing a provider. You do need to document how you did this, who reached out to you, who submitted quotes, how you chose who was the most cost-effective bid. And this matrix here is an example of how you could possibly do that if you do have multiple companies. Now, cost needs to be the primary factor, but not the only one. And primary does not mean 50% of your decision-making process is about the cost. So in this example, I've decided that price is obviously one thing, but I would care about if I have prior experience with a vendor, how much they cost for other things, are they given the environment, are they local, etc. Could be anything that matters to you. These are just some examples. And I assign points to each one of these items. This is all subjective too, except for kind of the price. None of this is just like there's not a you. So this is all you just deciding, well, I like this vendor, I don't, or I think they're good in the environment, in my opinion. So this is all subjective, but you do assign points. And as long as you assign the most points to price, that makes it your primary factor that you're using. Everything else is assigned, the max they can earn is less than the 30 for the price. So it doesn't have to be 50% or 51%, it's just, it's worth more points than everything else. So in this case, I had 3 companies that reached out to me. Vendor 2 was obviously the cheapest. You can see here, they got a full 30, more than the other 2, but vendor 3 ended up with a total higher. So that means they are the company you can go with. It looks like here, their big difference was this prior experience. This probably was a situation where a new company came into town and you don't know anything about them, but you know these other 2, so they got more points in this one. Or they're a company you know of and they're not so good with customer service. They're really bad, bad history, bad reputation in town, etc. And so you can give them a 0 for that. Give them whatever you want. Like I said, this is all subjective, your opinion. If you have to do this, if you have to do a comparison, keep this, save this. So anytime in the future, USAC or these vendors can reach out and say, hey, how did you make that choice? For example, vendor 2 may contact USAC and say, hey, we know we're cheaper than vendor 3. They should not have picked them. That's wrong. They broke the rules. They didn't choose the cheapest company. Well, that's not what the rules say. It's cost effective and price primary factor. As long as you have this, you can show USAC and the vendor, well, this is why you didn't earn enough points under prior experience, price for ineligible services, environmental, whatever. So your total was less. Sorry. And then you're fine. So if you have to do a 470 and if you have multiple companies that reach out to you, this is a way that you can do that comparison. Now, there are some special situations. What if you have a current contract with a company and you want to continue with that one, but you want to see if there is something else out there just to see. You can just post a 470 like you do, wait your 28 days as you do, and then your current contract can be one of your bids. So this would be if you're just kind of putting your feelers out there to see if there's somebody else in town. If the existing contract is a winning bid, then you just use them and go forward with your application. This is where that prior experience would probably come into play. Hey, I know these guys, they're my current company. What if the city pays for the library's internet? And it's part of one big internet bill for the whole city and all the different departments that use it. That's okay too. But you can only receive an E-rate discount on the library's portion. So you use cost allocation. You separate the library's internet usage from the rest of the city's internet usage. You may be able to get actual statistics from your service provider that show this is how much the library uses, this is how much the town hall uses, this is how much the fire department uses, and then you just apply for a discount on the amount the library does. What if you have only one bid or none? That's okay. You don't actually have to have a competition, a competitive bidding process. If you only have one bid, go with it. That's fine. Just write a little memo or email to yourself saying, we only received one quote. If you didn't have any bids and it's after your 28 days, you can then reach out to the companies. If you wanted to get something in writing from your current provider, contact them and say, hey, send me a bid. If you knew there was some new company in town and you wanted to see what they would offer you, after those 28 days, you can ask them to send you a quote. So anytime after your allowable contract date, you can close your competitive bidding process. There is no button to check to say it's closed, no button to say no longer, to turn things off in E-rate. You just pick a date and say we're done. You can put that in that narrative in your 470 saying we will not be accepting bids after so-and-so date if you want to. And then you would evaluate, choose who you're going to go with, and then sign a contract. If you're doing a new contract, something new with the company, do not sign anything before those 28 days have passed. As I said, we did have a library just this past year lost out on their E-rate because they signed something too early. Just don't do that. Please don't do that. But after you have done that, then you do your 471, but only during its application filing window. There is only a few, couple of months that the filing window for the 471 is available. They only accept 471s. Generally, it's the first couple of months of the funding year, January, February, March. So the second form in the E-rate process is that 471. This is a form where if you've done a 470 and you've picked a provider, waited those 20 days and picked a new provider, you now report it. If you meet any of those exemptions, this is where you start your E-rate process. You don't have to do a 470, you just start at the 471. You say which service provider you've chosen, what the service is going to be, you certify with rules. This one you have to do everywhere. There's no exemptions for submitting a 471. That's not a thing. You always have to do this one. If you did do a 470, everything in your 471 must match whatever you've asked for in your 470. So you can't add something to your 471 that you didn't already put in your 470 if you submitted one. So just make sure that they do match. That's why I say the 470 is kind of a wish list, maybe more than you might get. You might have put that big list of equipment you want to purchase possibly on your category 2, but then you back off and say, you know what, we're just going to do some routers this year, not the switches or wireless access points. Just change your mind. That's okay. But you can't put anything on the 471 that you did not put on the 470. It has to all be there if you did a 470. This is where you can now start working with your provider. Bring your service provider into the conversation now. Yes, you've done the 470. You got to make sure that's just on its own. But you definitely want to talk to them. Make sure you get the right equipment that you're going to be purchasing, the details, the models, the costs, everything. And let them know how you want to receive your discount. You decide whether you want to have a discount on your bills or if you want to pay the bills in full and then get reimbursed after the fact. So when do you do the 470? When do you do the 471? After the 470 has been posted for at least 28 days, if you did one. After you have a contract or legally binding agreement signed, that also had to be after the 28 days have passed, if it's something new. And only during the application filing window. It usually falls between January and March. The dates are usually announced in December. So USAC does a monthly news brief. I highly recommend signing up for that. But I will also post onto our website and announce when they've announced what the dates are. The filing window for 2025 has yet to be announced, so dates to be determined. But they've always generally fallen January through March. So wait for that notification to let you know when the 471 window will be opening. This notification, these dates will also tell us the deadline for submitting the 470. That is a question I get a lot too. What's the deadline? Until we know the deadline, until we know the end of the filing window for the 471, we don't know the deadline for the 470 because of that 28-day competitive bidding process. So once we do know these dates, we take the final date of the filing window, back up 28 days. That's the deadline to submit a 470. Generally, that will fall sometime in February, with the end of the window being in March. When we announce the dates have been picked, you'll have emails and it will say, now we know this is the deadline, the latest that you can submit the 470. What's one cool thing about the Epic system is it will proactively send you an email letting you know when you have reached your allowable contract date. So when you have reached those 28 days, allowable contract date reached for Form 470, you may now close your competitive bidding process and go on to the 471. So after you submit your 470, just wait for this email to come. Then start doing your process of evaluating. It also gets put into your news in your USAC system as well. Now, before you can do your 471, you may need to upload your contract, whatever contract you signed. If you signed a new contract, you're going to need to upload it. If you're doing that Cabio, the less than $300, 100 megabits per second, you're going to have that contract to attach to your 471. So you do that before you do the 471. So you upload your contract. Here you go. You click on your library's welcome library name. Brings you into your organization account. This is where we looked at the news items, your category 2 budgets, but instead you click on contracts. We don't have any contracts yet. So over here on the upper right, we click manage contracts. And then we're going to add a new one, blue button at the bottom. Give a nickname to it as required. I just wrote Internet 2025 to 2028. So this is my new Internet contract. If you have a contract number, you can put that here. It's not a requirement. Save and continue. Would you like to upload a copy of your contract? Yes, that's kind of the point. I think they have that there. Sometimes you might create the record and then go find the contract later. So you need to have this in an electronic document. So you're going to say yes, and then you can either click on upload to navigate to where it is, or click and drop. You can describe the contract if you need to, explain what it is. In my case, I just said it. My nickname, Internet 2025 to 2028, kind of is a description. But you can if you want to. Save and continue. And there's a few questions they're going to ask. Is it based on a state master contract? If there was a state contract you're using, you would say yes. If not, no. Is it based on a multiple award schedule? That would be something that would be in the contract that you would know. You can click yes or no. Save and continue. And then it's going to ask about piggybacking. Can other applicants piggyback off of this contract, or did you piggyback off of someone else's? So someone else can have a contract they've agreed to, and you can just join in rather than creating your whole new one. So if you did, you'd say yes. If not, you'd say no. I'm going to say no for ours. Was there a 470 posted for this? So if you met one of those exemptions, like the Cabio one, or being a multi-year, you're in one of the ongoing years of the multi-year, you would say no, and it will say, you can say how many bids were received, and it will say that this is a exemption. If you did post a 470, then you would say yes, and then you would have to give more information. How many bids were received? Was it before funding year 2016? That is because that's before EPIC existed. That would be for if you're doing some really back historical things. So generally you're going to say no. And then you're going to look for your 470. Now there are some search fields here you can use, but it automatically pre-fills in your BEN, that build entity number they talked to you about way back. So that's already going to be in that box there. So all you really have to do is just click search, and then it'll bring up every 470 you've submitted. If you know the nickname, or if you kept track of the number, you can enter it, but I find easier. Just give me all my 470s and I'll pick the right one. You'll see here I ended up on 6 to 8 of 8. I had to go to the second page of my 470s to find the one for the correct funding year. So look at if you've been doing this for years in here, all your 470s are going to come up. So find the one for the right funding year. This one was I was doing it for 2023, so I picked the 2023 one. Save and continue. Then you've got to choose who your provider is, your service provider. If you have an account number, you can enter it, not required. If you know their ID number, their SPIN, you can enter that, or you can type in their name. In our training account here, they have some dummy default providers called USAC. So I searched for USAC, came up with multiple ones called USAC, and I just picked, oh, yep, that's mine. Confirm with your service provider what their SPIN is they want you to use. Some of them have multiple SPIN numbers, and you got to make sure you're using the correct one for what service you're getting from them. Save and continue. If this is one of those multi-year contracts, you could say yes, and the date you awarded the contract is the date you signed it. If it's not, you would say, yeah. That if it's not a multi-year contract, you would just say no. Are there any voluntary extensions? That would be something that would be in your contract. Read it, see if you do have any extensions that you can do voluntarily or not. Say yes or no. And are there any statutes, rules, or restrictions which prohibit publication of the pricing info? We do not have that in Nebraska, so you would say no to the pricing confidentiality question. And then it will show you, here's your contract record. Does this all look correct? If not, you do have a back button. You can go back and fix things if you want to, or you can cancel it and create a whole new one if you've made a total mistake. But then you complete, and now our contract is available there for us to use whenever we do our 471. All right, so the 471 is probably the most complex of all of the applications. It has a two-step process, and you have to file a separate one for each category of service. There's a lot more to it. And now I'm going to explain a little bit about it. We're not going to go a full demo of all the rest of the forms. They all look very similar to the 470, and also they're not anything you can submit until next year anyways, so I'm just going to talk about them. We're also want to get done on time as possible, close to as on time as possible with the end of our workshop today. This is why I do that this way. If you do need assistance with any of your forms, as I mentioned earlier, I'm here to help you, and I will do screen sharing like this. I will set up a GoToWebinar account or a session like we're doing today, but instead of me sharing my screen with you, you will share your screen with me, and I will guide you through the form, telling you to click here, click there, enter this, upload that. I do this with libraries all the time. That's part of what I do here. So if you are confused or unsure about doing a form, reach out to me. We'll set up a time, and I will help you go through all of these forms. In addition, USAC does have videos, really good, short 5-minute each videos or so on demoing how to do all of their forms. So you can watch those videos as well. But for the 471, first, you do have to file a separate one for each category of service, category 1 and category 2. With the 470, you could do one big application if you want to, or you can do separate ones. For the 471, it will only let you do one category or the other each time. If you pick category 1, it's only going to let you enter category 1. Then if you pick category 2, it only let you do those. That is because the way the discounts are handled is different for 1 or 2, and it has to do different math behind the scenes. For the funding requests that you create based on the services you asked for, first you create the funding request for each item, whether it's your internet access, your construction, your internet connections equipment, and then you go into each of those funding requests to add the details. They call that the line item information. This is the specifics about the service you're getting, the specifics about the piece of equipment you're buying, and how much it's going to cost. So you can think of this as kind of step. The funding request is an envelope, and the line items are the stuff that goes in your envelope, the mail that goes inside, the paper. This is where some people kind of get lost in the process, and they start getting error messages and don't know what to do. They created the funding request, and they don't realize they now have to go back into it to do the line item. They start getting errors. A trick to know if you've done everything you're supposed to, if you haven't entered a monetary amount, a dollar amount yet, you haven't finished your 471 request. That's what the line item is going to ask you. It's going to be where you put in the prices. So if you haven't done money, you haven't done your 470. If you haven't finished that, and that's why you're getting error messages. You start the 471 right at the top, just like you do your 470, and go through it. Just you do it a nickname, very similar, looks very similar to the 470. As I said, I'm not doing a full demonstration of that today, just telling you the basics of how the form will work. But I will work with you on doing those next year if you need me to when it's time to submit them. Just like the 470, you get an acknowledgement, a notification they've received your 471. You can make corrections or changes if you want to. If you discover that pricing has changed since you first did your 470, you can request a reduction in funding, but not an increase. So if your service provider decided, oh, actually cost is going to be less than you thought, that's fine. After you've submitted the 471, they come back to you and say, actually, we got a deal going. That's great. You reach out and say, hey, the pricing changed. If it went the other direction and they did an increase, you cannot make a change to the 471. You'd have to submit a new 471 with the new pricing. And this is your notification you get in your news item, this receipt and acknowledgement letter 471. After your 471 is submitted, then it goes, your application goes into application review. This goes to their Program Integrity Assurance Department at USAC. The people that review your application, they're going to make sure that you're eligible, the services are eligible, you entered everything correctly. They may come back to you with questions and ask you for more details, for paperwork. You will get an email sent to your email address proactively. You don't have to go into Epic to see if there's questions. They will send you an email saying, hey, we have an inquiry, but then you will have to go into your Epic account to answer the question, to see what the question is and answer it. The email just says, we have a question. You got to go into your Epic account to see what the question is. If you receive one of these and you don't know what they're asking for, can't understand it, that's totally common. Reach out to me and I will help translate. They have a tendency to take 3 paragraphs to ask something that could have taken 3 sentences. I am sometimes copied on your PIA requests for inquiries, but not every time. I don't know why. If I do receive one, I will proactively go and look at it and see what it says. I can view your requests, their inquiries they may have, and I may proactively reach out to you and say, and send you an email saying, hey, I took the liberty of looking at this. If you just, in case you're wondering, this is what they're asking for. But I don't get all of them. So if you're unsure, email me, forward me the request, and I will help you answer it. This review process can go on for months. You submit your 471 at the latest sometime in March, and they start reviewing them as soon as they get them, but they can be doing them through April, May, June, July, August, September, past the way when the funding year starts. Yes. So once you do your 471, you just sit back and wait to hear from them with questions or to hear from them that you've been approved. If it's past the start of the funding year, that's okay. You still receive and your full funding going back to July 1st, you'll just get a big credit from your service provider. So even if you don't get your application approved later, after the funding year starts, don't panic, you'll still get your full amount. What they will send you is when they have approved your application, when they have completed their review, they'll send you a funding commitment decision letter, FCDL. This will let you know if you've been funded or not, or if they reduce the funding, anything. You might get more than one, especially if you've applied for Category 1 and Category 2, or if you've done multiple 470s, you'll get multiple decision letters. So keep your eye open for letters that are applied to all the forms you submitted. If you disagree, like if they reduce your funding or deny it, you can file an appeal. If you want to do that, let me know. We'll work on that. This is the funding commitment decision email you will get. Funding commitment decision letter is available. The email just says and the email tells what your next steps are. Your next step is to do the 486, letting them know you want to receive the funding and you're in compliance with SIPA. Your letter, the actual document is attached in a PDF. You click on that and see how much you received. It also has what your next steps are. After you've received your funding commitment decision letter, if you are good and you want to get the funding, you immediately do your 486. There is no reason to wait. There's no window to wait to open. You want to do this right away so you can immediately start getting your funding as soon as the funding year starts or as soon as you start buying things. This form is to notify them that services has started and that you are going to working on getting invoice for them. And this is where you do your compliance with SIPA. The 46 is also where libraries tend to lose it in the process. You get this letter that says, yes, you've been approved, and you say, yay, I did it, I got my E-rate. Well, no, that's not exactly what that letter means. What it means is they have approved your application and the money has been set aside for you. Now you have to tell them you still want the funding. That's what the 46 does. You have to do the 46 every year too. 471 and 46 every year, no questions asked, must both be done. there is, and as I said, there's no reason to wait to do this. So as soon as you get it, why wouldn't you not want to get your funding? Well, by the time you submitted your application now, started it today in the fall, and you receive your approval by next year, maybe your situation has changed. Your library is no longer going to be, new library is no longer going to be built, so we don't have the need to buy these new routers and switches and category 2 pieces of equipment. Or your service provider has said, you know what, we're pushing out fiber, we're going to give it free to the whole town, under the goodness of our heart. Yay, us. So you no longer have to get a discount on the cost. Things happen, so you may have to say, no, we don't need it. What's great about the 486 though is it is the easiest form in the whole process too, and I hate that libraries miss out on doing it so much or forget to do it, because everything you need is already in the system. There's literally hardly anything you have to actually enter. You already provided all that information in your 471, and it just auto-fills into the 486. So the 486 is up at the top here of the form as well, or as your landing page. You give it a nickname, you pick yourself as the contact person, and you choose the correct funding year that you're going to apply for. This demo we have is the 2020 year. There are some search boxes here where you can look up your different funding requests, but because we chose the funding year we were applying for, it's going to show all the ones we have right down here in the bottom. And what we need to do is we need to select which ones we want, and then they get copied down into the selected funding requests, because sometimes you might want one and not the other for whatever reason. So we check in the box for the one that we want, we click the add button, and now it has copied it down to selected. You have to have certain ones selected for the ones you want to actually receive the funding for. Then we continue. The certifications on this form are a little different than the other two for both the 470 and 471. It's just check all the boxes. In this one, the first two that are the square boxes are agreeing to the legalities. You have to check those. The third one, or the other ones here, are where you pick one of these SIPA certifications. This is where you state that you are or are not in compliance with SIPA. The first choice is we have complied. The second is we are working on complying. They do give you up to 3 years to get in, to get your filter set up. They know that it can take time to pick one and install it and getting working. So you do have time to do that. The third one is SIPA does not apply. There are certain telecommunications type connections and the previous, when telephone was an option that you could get an E-rate discount on, that SIPA would not apply. So you're going to be really choosing either one or two. We have it, we're in compliance, or we're working on it. You can preview this and see and make sure you've done the right selection. For some reason, some libraries are having trouble here, and either the system is getting confused or they're clicking the wrong one. I don't know why. But if you apply for internet service and you choose like SIPA does not apply to us, this form will get reviewed by someone, and they will reach out to you and say, hey, you applied for internet, but you said you're not in compliance with SIPA. Would you like to change that? They will let you change it. It won't totally knock you out of getting E-rate. They understand that people check the wrong box or something sometimes, and it's okay. So they'll ask. You can always fix it. But just try to pay attention. Click the one that says we have complied. When you hit preview, double check and make sure that it's that before you actually submit the whole application. After you submit your 486, a letter will be issued to you and your service provider letting them know that you've submitted, so they know they can start discounting your bills if it's what you're going to be doing. And it's also in your Epic News. There is a deadline for submitting the 486. It is 120 days after your service start date, or 120 days after the date of that your funding commitment decision letter was issued. If it was done after that July 1st start of the funding year. So if it is done before July 1st, October 29th is the deadline. So that will be October 29th of next year for when you're doing your 486 next year. At the beginning of October, I do check and see where my libraries are at. I will look up and see where your applications are. And if anyone has not done the 486 yet, who's been approved, I will proactively send you an email saying, hey, I see you got your funding approved. You haven't done your 486. You need to do that by October 29th, or you will lose out on some of your E-rate funding. It is not you will lose out completely if you don't submit it by the deadline, but it will be reduced by every day that you are late. So they will take, your full discount amount, divided up by 365 days, and every day you're late, that amount will be reduced from what the amount of money you will get. So do it by the deadline. As soon as you get your funding commitment decision letter, just sit down and do it. There's no reason to wait. There's no reason that you need to wait at all. Just turn around that day, next day, sit down, boom, boom, do the 46. If you need my help, send me an email saying, hey, I got the commitment. Can we set a time to do this? Get it done. The final form in the E-rate process is your invoicing form, and depending on how you're getting your discount will depend on which form gets submitted. You have a choice as the applicant of how you want to receive your discount. The service provider cannot say we don't do one or the other. Some of them seem to be saying that sometimes. If you get that kind of response, reach out to me and I will work with USAC on reminding them that it is your decision. The first option is receiving a discount automatically on your bills, and then the service provider is reimbursed for what they discount you by USAC. In that case, the service provider submits the service provider invoice form, the SPI, to E-rate. Service provider always gets paid in full, just part from you, part from USAC. We recommend this. It's easiest for the library because then you're done. You only have to do up to the 46 form. You don't have to submit anything else. But if you decide that having automatically billed invoices is not good for you and you'd prefer paying your bills, your other option is that you can pay your bills in full and then you apply using a bear form and get reimbursed after you've paid your bills in full. And then you, as the applicant, submits the bear form, billed entity applicant reimbursement form. This also has a 120 days deadline. It's 120 days after the last date of service, so that's June 30th, or whenever you did your 46. Form 46. This is another one. So at the beginning of October, I do two things. I look to see if any of my current year applicants have done their 46, and I see if any previous year applicants have done an invoicing. An invoicing form has been submitted, whether it's a bear or a SPI. And I'll send you an email about that as well. For the SPI, for some reason, some service providers do not submit this right away, and it will get to the end of a funding year and they still haven't requested their funding. I don't know why. It's up to them. It's their responsibility. So my email to you when I say, hey, I don't have an invoicing form, I don't see one submitted, it will instruct you, check your bills. If you had said you want discounts and you are receiving discounts on your bills and that's all fine, you're done. You don't have to worry about it. Not your responsibility to get the service provider to get their money back. It's on them. But however, if you have not been receiving discounts on your bills, then you need to do your bear form. This is a direct reimbursement, electronic bank transfers only. They do not mail out checks. So you do need to provide them with your banking information. That is what the 498 form is for. This is a one-time form, as long as your bank information doesn't change, where you provide the usual information, just like when you do a direct deposit request for your paycheck, banking on information, routing numbers, etc. You will need to provide the federal ID number that's used for payroll, whether the library has its own or it's through the city, your municipality. And if you're doing a new 498, you don't already have one in the system, you have to get a new number called a Unique Entity Identifier, a UEI. Before 2023, they used a Dun & Bradstreet number, DUNS, as far as doing business with the federal government. Now, in 2023, the federal government created their own number. There's information about that on their E-rate website. If you need to, you have to go through their sam.gov website. If you need to create a new number, reach out to me. I've got help guides. I can get you set up with doing this. You also need this number to get any federal funding now. So like applying for our library improvement grants here through the Library Commission. But this is only if you're doing a new 498 or modifying a previous one, like your bank account information changed. If you already have a 498 in the system, you don't have to redo it. When you are doing the 498, you will have to provide documentation, as usual, copy of voided check or a copy of a bank statement so they can verify your account info. Now the 498 is in a different place than all the other forms because it's not a regular form you do every year. It's a one-time form. It's not up here in the upper right section of the application of your landing page. Instead, you click on your library name, and then you click on related actions. And there's a giant list of things you can do. And about halfway down, there'll be the Create FCC Form 498. Now, if you have already created one, there's already one in the system, this option won't be there. So if you're missing the Create Form 498 thing, it means you already did one, so you don't have to. If it is still there and you might potentially ever want to do a bear form and request reimbursement, it'll be there and you can click on it and fill in your info. Basic information, application nickname, business type, you are a city or township government as a library. Your tax ID number would go on here in here. I'm not going to show every page of this because it's like banking information that I don't have for my fake library here, but you would enter all that usual info. Once you have entered everything, you will be given a 498 ID number. So this will be created for you, but you still have to submit your paperwork. The remittance information section of this form is where you upload a copy of voided check, bank statement. And after you submit this, then USAC will double check and verify your bank account information, and then we'll let you know when this 498 ID is ready to be used. So this is not an instantaneous thing. It's going to take a couple of days at least. So if you need to request reimbursement and do a bear form, you're going to want to plan ahead and do this because you're going to have to wait for them to get this all set up for you. They will let you know when it's ready to go. And you can also check the status of it in your account if you want to. So if you are requesting reimbursement, where is the bear now? The bear has moved around over time. Some of you have done this in the past will know you used to have to go out to a separate website. It's been a couple of different places, but now there's been an E-rate consolidation in 2023, and everything is in the same place. Everything is in there now. So now you can access the bear also in your Epic account. And you can read more about the systems consolidation on their website if you want to. This is under E-rate invoicing right here. Now these screenshots here, they do kind of pop you out somewhere else, but then you get back into Epic. Yeah. These are two different screenshots. This is not part. So I want to show you the two different ways it could possibly appear when you log in. When you click to go and do invoicing and do a bear. If in this end of this table here, when you first log in, it's blank, that means there's no bear to be submitted. That means either it's not time yet to do that, you haven't done your 486, or your service provider has actually done their SPI form and that's how the invoicing is done. So it's blank, you don't have anything to do. However, in this example, if there is a link there to click on, that means there is a bear that you could submit if you needed to. Still double check your bills, make sure you're not already getting discounts, and you just gotta, the provider has to do its own thing, but it is, if it's there, then you have one you can do. If you do need to do that, when you click on that, you then go into just kind of like all the other ones. You're gonna notice these forms are very similar. Give it a nickname. Are you the contact person? Yes or no. You will add line items. These will be choosing the specific things that you want to get reimbursed for. You choose the funding year first that you're looking at, because you can do these for previous years. And then you click here. This one is highlighted because I clicked on that row, and that's the one that is the thing that I'm trying to get a reimbursement for. You will tell them how you paid. This is your monthly bill, so we paid it monthly. On what date was it started? How much was it that we paid each in total, the total for the whole year if you're doing a year all at once. You can do these monthly if you want to. I think it's a lot of work, but you can do these every month and get reimbursed, or you can just wait till the funding year is over and get it all of the ones at the end. So you add all of those that you want to get a reimbursement for. You can look at a draft of it to ensure that everything is correct. If it is, then you, just like your other forms, continue certification. And I wanted to show you this one because I love how they did it with this one. I wish they would do it with all the other ones because they put a big red, pink, red. Please check all boxes to certify, letting you know that you do have to check every single box before you can actually certify the form. I wish they put that kind of note on all the other ones, but yeah. Maybe it'll get there. Certify, click that it's correct. Yes, and you've successfully filed your bear form. Whenever you submit a bear, you'll get a notification, just like every form, to you and your service provider letting you know it's been done. And you also start getting regular quarterly reports that'll get emailed to you. Check these reports. They are going to show you where USAC has sent money. If you did the bear form, it will say we sent this much money to this bank account. If you need to, check with your city, check your bank account, make sure that the money's there. If it's a SPI, the service provider, check and make sure that the amount the service provider has been sent from USAC is what they've discounted you on your bills. Compare this report to your bills and make sure you're getting what you should be getting. And that is our E-rate process. We went through all of the forms. We're a little after 12:30. I apologize. We had some good questions and things throughout the workshop today. Does anybody have any? So that is the end of the process. We did the 470, 471, 486, deciding which invoicing form we wanted to do. Does anybody have any desperate last-minute questions you want to ask me now? Type into the questions section. Oh, I got a that's super helpful. You're welcome. I realize now I did my original 470 incorrectly, so I will cancel it and redo it for both hotspot and service. Oh, great. I'm glad it was helpful. That's the idea. Does anybody have any other questions you want to ask me now while we're here before I wrap things up for the workshop today? Type into the questions section. I want to answer any questions you have now. If you need me to go over anything, clarify anything, is there anything you're hoping to learn today that you didn't yet, or something you're hoping to hear today that you haven't yet? All right, well, I'm waiting to see if you have anything. I'm just going to do a couple of final slides I have here. As I mentioned, E-rate has lots of great training on their website. Videos of all the different forms that you can watch, step-by-step. They have webinars, 1-hour webinars of throughout the last couple of months. As I said, their news brief, monthly newsletter. If you're the E-rate person, it's a good thing to sign up for, let you know when deadlines are coming up, tips and tricks, changes to the program, etc. Their customer service number, 888-203-8100. If you need to call them, like to set up a new account or any problems you have, you can also reach them if you do have an EP account through their own contact us link within the system. And then we have our E-rate website on the Library Commission webpage that I have links to all sorts of things that can be helpful to you. And me, there's my contact information. Call me, email me if you have any questions, concerns. You want help with submitting a form, you get a weird email from USAC and don't know what it's all about. That's what I'm here for. I'm going to just show you, this is our E-rate webpage that we have that is linked from the presentation. That does have a lot of the URLs that were in the presentation as well. General timeline, information, news and updates. I did do a shorter version of this. If you have someone who might need just a general introduction and not all of the step-by-step, every step of the form that you want to learn more about it, your board maybe for CE credits. You can watch my E-rate 101, just the basics. So that'll give a more general overview than these 3-hour-long, more in-depth workshops. And then here's links to a lot of things related to the forms. That Toward Gigabit Libraries Toolkit for learning more about your networking, Nebraska school lunch counts, urban or rural status, a discount matrix, videos for all the different forms, users guides, etc. Information about SIPA, a link to the DNS filter that we offer through the Library Commission for free, and a link to Sherm's webinar he did about internet filtering. In general. And then, as I said, E-rate's been around since 1998 for libraries to receive. It's all public information, and you can see which libraries have received it over the years and how much, if you are interested in seeing which of your colleagues have been doing this. But that wraps it up for our workshop. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome, I guess. And thank yous coming in. Does anybody have any last minute desperate questions you want to ask of me right now? Type in and I will answer any questions you have. I'll give you a minute or so to do that. No? All right, that's okay. Please do call me, email me if you have any questions, if you need any help with your E-rate. I am here to help. And that, thank you for being with me here today, and good luck with your E-rate. Bye-bye.